10 years after the wreck of the Black Pearl was consumed by a curse, Captain Jack Sparrow unexpectedly acquires a bronze compass inscribed with the ancient emblem of a sea deity, W. Hitch points toward the fabled Isle of No Return, where lies the River Styx anchor, capable of rewriting the laws of life and death. Yet this time, he is guided not by gold, but by the mockery of fate. The compass owner is none other than the long-buried old foe, Davy Jones, whose resurrection threatens to unleash a cataclysm that would obliterate all maritime laws. Chapter 1. Jess. It appears that we two scoundrels are destined to meet our end together, Jack Sparrow declared, leaning against Jess with sword drawn, surveying the surrounding sea creatures. Grinding her teeth, Jess retorted, "I have no intention of dying alongside you, you rascal." "Oh, Jess, that may not be entirely within your control," he replied, his tone laced with a hint of provocation. Jack Sparrow truly was an insufferable rogue, Jess thought, grinding her molars in frustration. Yet, this moment inexplicably transported her back to the first time she encountered Jack Sparrow. "God, what terrible luck!" Jess exclaimed, scrutinizing the stolen gold coins before cursing under her breath. The coins bore the image of a skull, a mark she recognized as that of pirates, the most unscrupulous and despicable beings upon the sea. She had certainly invited trouble by stealing this. Pirates were notoriously difficult to contend with, yet this treasure could sustain her for several meals. Jess gazed at this perilous prize, her heart torn with conflicting emotions. Before Jess could make up her mind, a voice emerged from behind her. "Excuse me, Miss Pickpocket, you have pilfered a gold coin from me, which could have procured quite a bit of rum." Jess halted her steps, turned around with a radiant smile, her gaze clear as day. "What gold coin, sir? This is my first visit here. You must be mistaken. Miss Pickpocket, that coin is not yours to take. It would be wise to return it. You must be familiar with pirates." The man, adorned with a smoky visage, brandished a gun aimed at Jess, advancing steadily towards her. He differed slightly from other pirates, and as Jess gazed at him for a moment, she regained her composure. His eyes were feline, strikingly beautiful. "Miss, if you do not surrender that coin, I shall be compelled to fire, regardless of your enchanting beauty." Jess dismissed the threat in his words, still grappling with the dilemma of whether to return the coin. A shimmering gold coin and a perilous pirate. With a determined bite of her lip, Jess tossed the coin into the hands of Jack Sparrow. "Good girl." That coin represented her greatest gain of the day. Exchanging, it could secure her a sumptuous meal from Old Tom. Jack Sparrow observed the indignation in her eyes, feeling rather indifferent. He had no fear of a mere pickpocket. However, once he faced his own downfall, he might not hold that sentiment for long. As Jess once again sought her target, the image of that coin consumed her thoughts. The beast within her roared incessantly, urging her to seize it. With that coin, she could afford to slacken her toil for several days. It was the most lucrative venture imaginable. She was confident in her ability to secure that coin, utterly convinced. Through a few clandestine whispers, she had procured the assistance of several robust allies, unwaveringly loyal, at least until they caught wind of the news that only she possessed. Moreover, she was aware that the pirates had a penchant for a tavern known as the Land of Freedom. The captain's words hinted at a particular fondness for rum. He would surely make an appearance. The pirates' ships would come here for supplies, and he would not be in such a hurry to depart. She could bide her time and let him walk willingly into her trap. "Jack, don't you think that aside from sharing the treasure, the location of that cache should also be disclosed? No one works for free, and you must realize we haven't laid eyes on those glittering treasures for days," the first mate Barbassa insinuated. Captain Jack Sparrow hesitated momentarily, but chose to trust Barbassa. As he handed over the map, he quipped, "Without those, would you still wish to follow a grand captain like mice? Elf? All right, stop looking at me like that. Here you go, my ever-dedicated first mate. All right. I believe the loyal crew will appreciate their captain even more, for he has once again led them to treasure," Barbassa exclaimed, examining the map for authenticity before carefully stowing it within his garments. "Loyalty? As long as their fidelity remains tethered to the glimmering riches, I shall consider it a fortunate circumstance." Jessie, adorned with a hat slightly larger than those of others, reclined against the tavern counter, observing the ebb and flow of patrons. "Jessie, hasn't the person you mentioned arrived yet?" inquired a tall figure, his impatience palpable. Jessie lifted the brim of her hat, revealing her cunning, fox-like eyes. Rom, if you harbor any doubts about my words, feel free to depart. I shall sell the information to another, and you will find it exceedingly difficult to catch me, as you know. Rom fell silent. Although the three of them were stronger than she, her shrewdness made it all too easy for her to slip away when the opportunity arose. By the time they sought to seize her, she would have vanished without a trace. It was a mystery why she was so fixated on a mere captain. Jessie turned her gaze to the figure entering through the doorway, adjusting her hat slightly. That is the one wearing the captain's hat. The individual beside him is likely his first mate. Pay him no mind. I require only the captain. Very well, Miss Jessie, as you wish. The three burly men acquiesced, making their way towards the pair. Jessie could not quite comprehend her obsession with this captain. Was it the way he brandished his pistol at her, perhaps the gold coin, or his feline-like eyes? She leaned more towards the notion that her interest was solely motivated by the coin. Before long, her attentive little accomplice brought Jack Sparrow before her, while the first mate observed the unfolding spectacle from a distance. I've never heard of this so-called Miss Jessie. Hey, don't touch me. Barbassa. Jack Sparrow appeared quite vulnerable amidst the trio. Jessie removed her hat, resting her chin on her hand, delighting in the expression on Jack Sparrow's face, surprised, then astonished, followed by curiosity. She found herself perplexed by the essence that radiated from his smile. Captain Jack Sparrow, it is a pleasure to encounter you once more. I trust my dear little gold coin has been residing comfortably with you. Jess approached, whispering softly into his ear. Chapter 2. Do not assume that her intentions are to entice anyone. Her actions serve dual purposes: to prevent those three oafs from getting their hands on her gold, and to provoke Captain Jack Sparrow, for she has always been one to hold a grudge. As Jess spoke, her breath wafted in the air, and even amidst the cacophony, Jack Sparrow could discern her inhalations. He took a slight step back, an action promptly noted by Jess. Shy? Pirates are not known for shyness. Miss Jess, it is rather inappropriate to be so close to a gentleman, he remarked. Jess raised an eyebrow and retreated a few paces. All I require is for you to return what is mine. What is this thing you speak of? Jack Sparrow feigned ignorance. Jess directed a pointed chin towards him, and the three hulking men brandished their knives, poised to strike at Jack Sparrow's throat. Wait. Have you changed your mind? Jack Sparrow's eyes widened, nodding fervently. Jess commanded the three brutes to release him. I would never allow anyone to come to harm. You provide me with what I seek, and I shall offer you some information of your interest. What information might that be? Jack Sparrow inquired, his brows furrowed in curiosity. Jess stepped closer, pressing down on his head to prevent him from turning away, and began. It appears your crew lacks loyalty to Captain Jack Sparrow. Just days ago, I observed the gold you possess, but at that moment, you were busy with supplies while your first mate convened a meeting with your crew aboard the ship. To witness her splendid performance, one must inevitably make a sacrifice. Captain Jack Sparrow paused, producing a gold coin and proclaiming loudly, although I am uncertain when this coin became Miss Jess's, I firmly believe it should be a case of first come, first served. His exaggerated demeanor, despite its potential deceit, captivated many onlookers, particularly in a tavern where a throng of inebriates awaited an opportunity for free drinks. Jack Sparrow just glared at him. Captain Jack Sparrow, miss, he replied with a smirk, tipping his hat to his chest, and with a playful gesture, he tossed the golden coin into the air before sauntering away. Observing the avaricious gazes of those nearby, and the three burly men already in pursuit of the coin, Jess realized that this piece of treasure might elude her grasp. However, she pondered whether stealthily trailing this captain might lead her to greater riches. She had a penchant for sparkling objects and a fondness for rum. Tossing aside her hat, she deftly maneuvered through the crowd, avoiding several drunkards. Dearest Captain Jack Sparrow, although you have bested me on numerous occasions, I remain intrigued by the gleaming treasures you possess. Jack Sparrow cast a skeptical glance at Barbossa beside him. While he did not fully trust the words of the two-faced pickpocket, he indeed began to harbor doubts regarding Barbossa's intentions. However, he found himself with limited options. Even in doubt, there was little he could do. His crew craved treasure to satiate their insatiable appetites, and his first mate held the map concealing the coveted riches. Should betrayal indeed be afoot, he feared he would have no opportunity to mount a rebellion. Jess trailed behind Captain Jack Sparrow and noticed him engaged in conversation with Barbossa at the roadside. The sea breeze seemed to conspire against her, muffling the details of their exchange, prompting her to cautiously inch closer. By an unfortunate twist of fate, she stepped on a discarded bottle, resulting in an exclamation of surprise and a sharp gasp. Rubbing her backside, she thought to herself, who could be so inconsiderate as to litter the road with bottles? Damn that drunken fool. It appeared a certain beautiful lady required Captain Jack Sparrow's assistance to rise. A hand extended towards Jess, and as she prepared to grasp it, she looked up to find the face of Jack Sparrow staring back at her. Embarrassed, she rose on her own, brushed off the dust from her attire, and feigned astonishment, exclaiming, "What a coincidence, Captain Jack Sparrow." "Indeed, a most fortuitous encounter, Miss Jess," he replied. Barbassa's laughter sent a shiver down her spine, sensing that the situation might be dire. "Ha ha ha. Your supplies should be replenished by now. Since you are departing, why not part ways here? This place lacks reliable guards, and she needed to leave post-haste. Who knows how many nefarious minds lurked among these pirates?" Jack Sparrow firmly grasped Jess's hand and sincerely stated, "I believe Miss Jess is an intelligent individual." "No, I am not." Jess thought desperately of escaping, yearning to return to her former life as an information broker, enduring hunger thrice a day. Jack Sparrow, however, paid no heed to her protests and commanded Barbassa, "Take Miss Jess aboard the ship." Barbassa nodded, his expression inscrutable. "Scoundrel pirates! Those wretched pirates dragging her into the depths." Jess silently cursed as several men bound her with ropes. Chapter 3. Once aboard, Jess felt even more discomfort. The scrutinizing gazes around her coiled like venomous snakes, tightening their grip and suffocating her further. A ship full of men was decidedly unwelcoming to her, the sole lady among them. Jack Sparrow dared to greet her, patting the ship's mast and exclaiming, "Miss Jess, this is truly a magnificent vessel, is it not?" "You are indeed correct, the great Captain Jack Sparrow. If only you could linger a while longer. Ah, I forgot, he has a ravenous wolf beneath him scheming for a coup." Jess's sardonic tone failed to stir even a ripple in Jack Sparrow's heart. Instead, it elicited a feigned lament from him. "Oh, Miss Jess, your dismissive tone is truly disheartening. You must know that the Black Pearl is the fastest and finest ship in the world. If I could be set free, then it would indeed be the very best ship." Jack Sparrow seemed to possess an uncanny ability to perceive the thoughts within her heart. Miss Jess was in agreement that the Black Pearl was indeed the finest vessel, which brought me great joy. I must prepare several bottles of rum for Miss Jess. Perhaps I should also procure a few chicken legs, for she appears on the verge of starvation. Oh, and I must arrange sustenance for Miss Jess as well. All to be placed in my captain's quarters. It shall be just the two of us, so you may organize your own preparations." With a commanding tone, Jack Sparrow issued his orders, and the crew set about their tasks with admirable efficiency. A few overzealous crew members glanced towards Barbassa, awaiting his subtle nod before springing into action. Once Miss Jess arrived at the captain's quarters, Jack Sparrow, swaying as if inebriated, locked the door behind them and leaned against it, eavesdropping for a moment to ensure they were alone before finally taking a seat. "Whom are you wary of?" Jess inquired with a mocking tone, aimed squarely at Jack Sparrow. "No one, Miss Jess," he replied. Jess scoffed, raising a bottle of rum to her lips. "If that were truly the case, you wouldn't be so vigilant." Jack Sparrow raised an eyebrow, noting her apparent fondness for rum. A delightful coincidence indeed. "Miss Jess, do not inquire about your first mate," he cautioned. "You seem quite aware of my curiosity," she retorted. "Of course, were you not eavesdropping at the door? I might suspect you were enamored by my charm." Jack Sparrow approached her, pressing Jess against the wall. "Why not?" "Because you are Captain Jack Sparrow." Jess gazed sincerely at him. Jack Sparrow stepped back, spreading his hands, stating, "Miss Jess, it is remarkable how you have come to understand me, even if just a little. In such a short span of time, you do not seem to possess the traits of a pickpocket. I am in the business of gathering intelligence. One must comprehend human nature to extract valuable information," Jess replied, taking another swig of rum. The stench of sweat aboard the ship was unbearable. Yet the rum was quite delightful. It was surprising how just a few sips could leave one feeling lightheaded. She recalled her tolerance for alcohol being fairly decent. Jack Sparrow watched her drink with a hint of envy and casually seized a can for himself. "So, even if I were to kill you, you would remain silent? Your power has waned. It is evident that the crew listens to him more than to you. He considers you a fool, Captain. Moreover, you have no other choice. You cannot escape this ship, and you love her dearly, do you not?" Jess remarked, tearing off a chicken leg and bringing it to her mouth. Jack Sparrow slumped into a chair and began to eat as well. "By your logic, I am certainly doomed," he acknowledged. "And you have dragged me along to share in your demise," Jess added. "The captain's end will surely be more favorable than that of Miss Jess. Is that so? I find it hard to believe. As they continued to drink, both felt their minds growing foggy, eventually collapsing onto the table. Chapter 4. Early the next morning. The two individuals, reeking of alcohol, were hauled out of the captain's quarters by the crew and doused with a bucket of cold water. A shiver coursed through Jace's body as the cold water struck him. In that moment, Jack Sparrow remained remarkably composed, gazing intently at Barbassa and asking, word by word, "Barbassa, are you truly prepared to betray the captain? It is well known that traitors meet their end upon the yardarm." Barbassa, clutching the map, revealed a glint of mad greed in his eyes, dismissing Sparrow's words with indifference. "Jack Sparrow, I possess the map now. The treasure it leads to is more than sufficient for our entire crew, and we can use it to procure superior equipment to plunder even more," he proclaimed. "I am the captain of this vessel now. I present you with two choices. 1. I execute you on the spot." Woo! The crew erupted in excited shouts. "The other option is for the two of you to venture to that deserted island with a single gun containing just one bullet. Jack, I trust you will maintain your gentlemanly demeanor and offer that bullet to this lovely lady." Ha ha. The crew burst into laughter. Barbassa observed Jack, frozen in place, as he made his choice, aiming the gun at him. Without a moment's hesitation, Sparrow turned and leapt into the fray. Consequently, Barbassa thrust the gun and bullet into Jace's embrace. Poor Jace, just regaining consciousness, found herself caught in the aftermath of their decision, only to be unceremoniously kicked down by Barbassa. God, could you not allow her a few days to seek an opportunity to escape before engaging in your treacherous schemes? Oh, Jack, this place is truly delightful, surrounded by trees and coconut palms, and we can fish whenever we please. What a splendid life for a retired pirate. Captain Jack Sparrow surveyed his surroundings with apparent satisfaction. Jess, wringing out the water from her clothes, squinted at Jack Sparrow and remarked sarcastically, "But there is no rum here. And certainly no black pearl, Captain." Jack Sparrow feigned ignorance and began searching for twigs and branches to ignite. "Jack, what will we do if wild beasts come at night?" Jess, merely a purveyor of information, lacked substantial survival skills in the wilderness. Calmly, Jack Sparrow replied, "That bullet. One bullet is hardly sufficient to fell a beast, let alone a pack of them." He raised an eyebrow and turned to Jess earnestly. "Miss Jess, when did I ever claim that bullet was intended for beasts? If I were you, I would conserve that bullet." Jess, stung into silence, lowered her gaze to search for edible berries. The night would be frigid, the darkness perilous. A fire would at least offer some assurance, and her damp clothes were becoming increasingly uncomfortable. "Can you even do this?" This was the 23rd time Jess had posed the question to Jack Sparrow. They had already squandered a considerable amount of time on this tedious endeavor of friction fire, and her garments were nearly crusted with sea salt. Captain Jack Sparrow gazed at her innocently, stating that one cannot expect a captain to engage in primitive tasks, as the primitives would surely protest. Jess found himself momentarily speechless. "I just gathered some wild fruits, though they may not suffice to satiate our hunger. Perhaps I should further investigate if there are any coconuts that have conveniently fallen nearby. At least we won't perish from starvation too swiftly." "Thank you, dear." Silence. Chapter 5. Jess spotted coconuts and approached to collect a few before retracing his steps. The fire had already been kindled, and Jess placed the coconuts beside the flames. "Jack, do you have an escape plan? While these coconuts and some uncertainly edible fruits and small fish may sustain us for a time, eventually we shall exhaust our provisions. When that day comes." Jess glanced back at the firearm resting on the beach, and an unspoken understanding lingered in the air. "Jess, perhaps you could attempt to embrace this way of life?" Without hesitation, Jess delivered a kick to him. "I advise you not to jest with me at this moment." Jack Sparrow shook his head. "There is no alternative." "I knew it," Jess mused. "However, there may indeed be a solution." "What do you mean?" "If you are an information broker, then you must be aware that some smugglers leave behind clandestine caches on deserted islands." Jack Sparrow pointed to the coconut grove, suggesting to Jess, "We may be fortunate enough to find one. Shall we take a gamble?" Upon hearing this, Jess immediately rose to search. For this was indeed a gamble concerning life and death. Well, Jess, you truly resemble a natural-born pirate. Thank you for the compliment, but I dare say I lack your audacity." The two meandered into the coconut grove, aimlessly seeking a barrel, only to return empty-handed and dejected. The island night was frigid. Even by the fire, Jess felt a shiver run through her. Woo! Jess sensed herself enveloped in a warm and comfortable embrace, raising her head cautiously to regard Jack Sparrow. "What are you doing?" "Just warming up. I'm a bit cold myself, are you not?" Jack Sparrow inhaled the scent of the girl nestled in his arms. She certainly wouldn't he believe the tales of a pirate, but holding her like this was indeed quite warm, So just for a moment more, then. Just a moment more. As Jess remained there, her eyes gradually fluttered shut, her body instinctively curling into Jack Sparrow's embrace. He gazed at the girl in his arms, leaning closer to examine her face, exclaiming, I never expected her to be rather lovely. Had Jack Sparrow not scrutinized Jess closely, he may never have recognized her beauty. After all, in a place as dismal as Turtle Island, the scent of perfume clung to women's skin, obscuring their true appearance. Jess was not one to rely on her physical allure for sustenance, and often dressed in a more masculine manner for the sake of safety. The following morning, Jess awoke, feeling as though she were ensnared in the embrace of Jack Sparrow. With a hint of irritation, she raised her gaze to him and asked, Could you possibly let me go? Why, you were the one who nestled into my arms last night. Jess, Jack Sparrow teased, his eyes glinting with mischief as he regarded her exasperated expression. Jess pushed away the increasingly intrusive Jack Sparrow, who seemed to be in an odd mood. At this rate, we might not have time for breakfast. Not to worry, we can always eat a bit later, can't we? Jack Sparrow's gaze remained fixed on Jess. Feeling a twinge of unease, Jess took a few steps back. You wouldn't dare to. You can't possibly be a pervert, could you? Maybe? Jack Sparrow's stubble brushed against Jess's cheek, and seeing her face pale only seemed to lift his spirits further. Seizing the opportunity while Jack Sparrow was momentarily distracted, Jess kicked him away, shot him a glare, and turned to venture into the coconut grove in search of provisions. As she walked, Jess felt her foot sink into a peculiar spot. What is this? She refrained from calling Jack Sparrow over. After all, if it were something intriguing, she was certain he wouldn't leave any for her. After lifting a wooden plank, she discovered a hidden stash of rum, evidently a smuggler's cache. It appeared she had indeed hit the jackpot. She hoped they would arrive to collect it soon. Wow, my treasure! Jess exclaimed, lifting a small barrel and, disregarding her image, took a hearty swig. Alcohol serves as the finest intoxicant, revealing the most authentic selves even in heroes. Chapter 6. Jack Sparrow sensed something amiss. Jess had been absent for too long. Even in the face of danger, with a firearm in her possession, she should have been able to manage. Yet no gunfire had echoed in the air, unless she had been rendered so vulnerable that she had no time to defend herself. Anxiously, Jack Sparrow paced restlessly, contemplating whether to rescue her. Perhaps his efforts would be in vain, only to discover a fresh corpse instead. After a prolonged internal struggle, reason urged him to abandon her and seek the source of the fire, assuring him he could endure a while longer. Yet, emotionally, Jack Sparrow found himself incapable of leaving Jess, a woman whose companionship he questioned, behind. With hesitation, Jack Sparrow sprinted towards the direction from which Jess had departed, calling out, Where are you, Jess? Jess remained silent. After all, should Jack learn of the smuggler's hidden wine cellar, he would likely seize all the liquor. No. She could not allow him to find out. Had she been captured by a beast, or was there a cannibalistic tribe that had ensnared her? Jack Sparrow furrowed his brow, searching intently ahead. Jess, he called, urgency lacing his tone. Sensing Jack's relentless pursuit, Jess managed to escape the smuggler's wine cellar, securing the wooden planks behind her. I'm here, Captain Jack Sparrow. Captain Jack Sparrow approached, inquiring why I had not responded when I called. Ah, I seem to have provoked him, as Jace pondered. He positioned himself to shield the wine cellar. What lies behind you? And the scent emanating from you appears to be. Jack Sparrow tilted his head, observing the wine cellar and the several empty bottles strewn on the ground. After catching a whiff of Jace's aroma, he remarked with a hint of sarcasm, Aha, rum. It appears you have been indulging quite merrily. Have I arrived too soon, interrupting your enjoyment of spirits? Well, this is merely an unexpected little discovery. Jace feigned ignorance, raising his hands above his head. Upon finishing his statement, Jack Sparrow slipped into the wine cellar, pouring rum into his mouth. You ought to address me properly, dear. Truly. You are indeed Jack Sparrow. Jace also entered the wine cellar, asking if there were any plans for escape. Captain. No. But you are the illustrious Captain Jack Sparrow. Jace exclaimed, squeezing closer to Jack Sparrow. The captain pushed Jace away from the barrels. We must await the arrival of our dear smuggler friends. Oh, all right. You are correct, Jace shrugged, setting down the bottle and stepping outside. What are you doing? Jack Sparrow found himself at a loss with this ever-elusive character after a previous unilateral departure from home. Jess turned around and winked, asking, Go fishing? Do you intend to fill up on rum this evening? She cautioned him not to stray too far. Jess regarded him with a puzzled expression, as his words bore a striking resemblance to those her mother used to say when she went out to play. When she returned with a few small fish, the fire had already been prepared. Jess skewered the fish onto wooden sticks and placed them on the grill. "Esteemed Captain, dinner is served," she called out twice. Yet there was no sign of Jack Sparrow emerging from the wine cellar. Peeking in, she discovered that he had succumbed to slumber from excessive drinking. Jess approached Jack Sparrow, poking his cheek, tilting her head, propping up her chin, and sighed. "I must have caused your family's downfall in a past life, Jack Sparrow." Chapter 7. However, she could unilaterally forgive him. After all, anyone who has been betrayed would naturally feel distressed, especially considering he had lost his beloved Black Pearl. It was understandable that he sought solace in drink. Jess removed Jack Sparrow's coat and hung it on a wooden rack beside the fire. Given that they were on a deserted island, it was prudent to dry the clothing. Falling ill would be truly unfortunate. Jess entered the wine cellar, set the wooden board in place, and leaned against a barrel to rest, feeling the chill of the night air. Early the next morning, Jess awoke, finding herself nestled against Jack Sparrow's waist. Jace's eyes widened in astonishment as he sprang to his feet, retreating a few steps, his ears flushed with crimson. He stammered, "Sorry." Captain Jack Sparrow leaned in, scrutinizing Jace's face, his hand caressing Jace's chin. Just as Jace presumed he was about to divulge something significant, Jack delivered a swift mental blow, exclaiming, "Jace, your ears are red again." Unable to tolerate it any longer, Jace retaliated with a punch to Jack's face, muttering, "You scoundrel." By the time Jack realized what had transpired, his hand was already touching his face, the lingering sting palpable. With a tone of mock lament, he remarked, "I never imagined Jace could throw a punch. There's much you remain unaware of." Jace retorted with irritation, gazing at the leftover fish from yesterday. Jace furrowed his brow, acutely aware that their time was limited. Stranded on this deserted island, their existence was sustained solely by rum, coconuts, fish, and wild fruits. Jace feared that if this continued, madness would inevitably ensue. "What troubles you, dear?" Jack Sparrow's inquiring tone inexplicably brought Jace a sense of solace, suppressing the turmoil within. Jace turned to face Jack, his expression grave, and stated, "Though this may sound selfish, I must assert that if I were to lose my sanity, please reserve that bullet for me, allowing me to end my own suffering." Jack discerned the unwavering resolve in her eyes and replied, "Rest assured, we are individuals who have triumphed even in high-stakes gambles. How could we possibly lack the fortune to endure until help arrives? Hopefully so." As Captain Jack Sparrow once remarked, "We fortuitously awaited the smugglers." Unbeknownst to them what Jack Sparrow had uttered, they nodded in agreement to accompany us back. The two men boarded the ship and retreated to the captain's quarters. "Hey, Jack, what did you say to them?" The heavily accented Spanish was utterly perplexing. "I told them you are a wealthy young lady, and I am your fiancé. If they deliver us to shore, we shall reward them handsomely with gold coins." Jess's cunning gaze fixed upon Jack Sparrow, scrutinizing him. "I suspect you intend to abandon me and flee. How could you say such a thing? After all, this is merely recompense for that punch you dealt me on the island, isn't it, Jess?" Jack Sparrow chuckled in response. Jess internally scoffed at his grudge. Pretending to be furious, Jess seized Jack Sparrow by the collar, yanking him forward. "You had better pray I do not find you later, Jack Sparrow." "Hey, we are currently masquerading as an engaged couple. Where do you see a couple preparing for marriage brawling? Do act the part, Jess. Surely, you do not wish to be left adrift in the ocean for the sharks to feast upon, do you?" Jack Sparrow pinned Jess's hands against the wall, drawing close to her face. Reacting quicker than her mind, Jess delivered a swift kick to Jack Sparrow. He winced in pain, clutching his leg, exclaiming, "You are hardly a lady, Jess." "You are not much of a gentleman, Jack," Jess remarked with a self-satisfied gaze fixed upon him. Chapter 8. The debt forgiven. "How about we settle the debt, Jess?" Jack Sparrow proposed. "What debt?" Jess inquired, perplexed. With a patient demeanor, Jack Sparrow elucidated. "I can absolve you of this financial obligation, but in return, you must accompany me." Jess felt as though he were being drawn into an irreversible path. "What? As my crew member? Duration?" "Indefinitely. You must be aware that the gold coins you owe are quite substantial." Jack Sparrow's fingers stroked thoughtfully, his eyes slightly raised, reminiscent of a fox poised to pounce. "But you cannot escape, can you?" "Not necessarily, Jess. Have you forgotten something crucial?" "I am Captain Jack Sparrow." Jess furrowed his brow in confusion and asked, "But you should also know that bringing a woman aboard is considered ill-fated. And I do not harbor much desire for the sea. I am of little use to you on the ship. What purpose does recruiting someone like me serve?" "Oh. Consider it a mere decorative vase for the ship, Jess. I trust you would not mind such a designation, would you?" Jess could sense the underlying sarcasm in Jack Sparrow's words. "Very well. I concede to your request, but may I impose a small condition?" "What condition?" "When I wish to depart, I am free to do so. However, within a span of 2 months, I shall return to your side for no less than a year. What do you think? Very well, it is settled. The credibility of Captain Jack Sparrow left Jess in a state of ambivalence. She doubted whether her worth as mere decoration could truly compel him to rescue her. Thus, she devised 2 contingency plans. The first was to draw her weapon and eliminate him without hesitation should the captain dare to abandon her. Using him merely as a tool for delay, the second was considerably more benevolent, dispatching the crew and seizing control of the vessel. Hey, mates, are we nearing our destination? Jack Sparrow jovially conversed with a few individuals, as if in just a matter of days, they had forged a brotherly bond. Jess overheard several guards engaged in idle chatter and deftly slipped into the captain's quarters, fully aware that the captain had been eyeing her with desire for days on end. Miss Roy? The captainess' gaze, a blend of confusion and avarice, sliced through Jess like a blade, rendering her unable to meet his eyes. She seated herself in a chair, feigning irritation as she remarked, "This ship is dreadfully dull. There is not a shred of excitement to be found." Excitement, you say? The captain seemed to have an epiphany, his eyes gleaming with intrigue. Miss Roy, I possess something quite entertaining. Oh? And what might that be? The captain unveiled his treasured gramophone, setting the music to play, and leaned toward Jess, extending his hand. Shall we dance? Jess internally scoffed, finding the proposition rather peculiar. She rose to her feet, placing her hand over that of the captain, for Jess understood that enduring a little longer was all that was required. Fortunately, that group of individuals was nothing without their captain, akin to scattered sand. Was there a sound emanating from outside? The captain, lost in thought, attempted to move toward the door. Nothing. Jess's dance steps kept the captain at bay, away from the threshold. Jack Sparrow could hardly manage to keep the noise distant from the captain's quarters. Furrowing her brow, Jess realized that without a weapon, her strength alone could not overpower this captain. Let her see, let her see. Oh, a sword. As the captain turned around, he noticed Jess with one hand on her waist, and the other poised to grasp the sword she had carelessly hung on the statue. He narrowed his eyes dangerously. Miss Jess, a lady would not dare to touch a sword, would she? I never claimed to be a lady, Jess retorted, attempting to draw the sword. Only to find herself lacking the strength, her efforts resulted in her stumbling backward a few steps. Chapter 9. Who designed this contraption? How am I supposed to wield it? Jess stared in disbelief at the statue, exerting further effort. The captain, observing Jess's struggle to unsheathe the sword, erupted into laughter. Miss Jess, it appears you cannot kill me. In that case, I shall accept your life instead. The next target will be that pirate. From the very beginning, the captain had never placed his trust in Jack Sparrow. What kind of normal person would find themselves marooned on a deserted island? Furthermore, Jack Sparrow's appearance immediately reminded him of the pirates they had encountered before. Not to mention the mark that inadvertently revealed itself on his hand. The captain lunged at Jess, who swiftly kicked him away and seized a plate from the table, hurling it at the captain before dashing towards the door. However, the thought of Jack Sparrow still dealing with the outside adversaries compelled her to mutter a curse against him. Captain, I suddenly feel as though I could become a lady. I wonder if I still have that opportunity? Jess earnestly gazed at the captain, whose head was smeared with blood. The captain lifted his head, revealing a sinister grin, and remarked with a sense of regret, "What a pity, Miss Jess. I have changed my mind. I shall deliver your companion to the Navy to be hanged, while you shall meet your demise aboard this ship." With that, the captain brandished a sword from a nearby sculpture, aiming to stab Jess, but unexpectedly, a loud bang echoed, and a gaping hole appeared in the captain's head. His pupils dilated, and with a thud, he collapsed to the ground. Jack Sparrow swung open the door and fired 2 more shots into the captain's lifeless body. Then, crouching down, he checked for a pulse, confirming the captain was utterly deceased before holstering his gun and greeting Jess with a smile. Jess, it seems our plan has unfolded flawlessly, despite having witnessed numerous bloody scenes. Jess's complexion remained pale. I shall go clean the deck, she declared. Jack Sparrow furrowed his brow, observing her ashen face, and kindly inquired, "Are you certain you are all right?" "Yes," Jess replied, stifling the wave of nausea that threatened to overwhelm her. This is a remarkable experience, Jess self-hypnotizes, reassuring herself that the trials she faces alongside the mischievous Captain Jack Sparrow will not be any less daunting than this. She must mature swiftly, otherwise, she risks perishing. This instance was merely a stroke of luck, with Captain Sparrow present and the deceased captain possessing certain vulnerabilities. Jack Sparrow shrugged, adjusted the brim of his hat, approached the bow of the ship, grasped the helm, and murmured, Welcome back, Captain Jack Sparrow. The two settled in the captain's quarters, where the bloodstains on the deck were nearly washed away by the rain, eliminating the need for Jess to clean them. The cabin was adorned with rum and an array of provisions, and they indulged themselves heartily. Jess narrowed her fox-like eyes, relishing the tranquility following the battle. She lifted a loaf of bread, sliced it with a knife, spread some jam, took a bite, and turned to glance at Jack Sparrow's profile, mumbling, "Jack Sparrow. Why do you want me as your crew member?" "Your choice, Jess. Is this not what you desired?" Jack Sparrow leaned back in his chair, rum trickling from his lips down to his chest. It appeared he was aware of her silence. Chapter 10. No one seeks out the illustrious Captain Jack Sparrow without reason. Jack Sparrow cast his gaze downward, seemingly disappointed by Jess's reaction. She resumed her seat beside him, conceding, "You are right. No one seeks you out without cause." Jack Sparrow turned his head, the scent of rum escaping his lips. "Yet at least you have not betrayed me. For you are somewhat pitiable. At least that is my impression." Jess is deceiving him, but he is willing to feign ignorance. "I am genuinely curious about your purpose in finding me." Jack Sparrow gazed into Jess's eyes, seeking any useful hint. "In truth, I am also unaware for the time being. Yet you may trust that I shall not betray you." Jess said earnestly, "At least not until you possess what I desire. Why should I place my trust in you?" Jack Sparrow scoffed as he rose. Jess lifted his head and chuckled lightly. "I am your only crew member you can trust for the moment, sir." Very well, very well. But if you truly know what you intend to take from me, may I be fortunate enough to learn of it first?" Jack Sparrow was intrigued by what could possibly be so coveted by Jess. Jess nodded, "As part of the reward for saving my life." Jack Sparrow shook his head. "The previous rewards have already offset each other, rendering it unnecessary to remember this." Jess's fingers began to fidget, tilting his head in an attempt to glean something from Jack Sparrow's eyes. But after a while, he ultimately surrendered. "Very well, that is your decision." Jack Sparrow emerged from the captain's quarters, leaving Jess alone to ponder within. She approached the side of the ship, picked up the compass, and feigned contemplation before softly uttering, "The voyage at sea has commenced, young Jess." Months later, Jess gazed at the distant harbor and questioned, "Are we headed there?" The navy and nobility here are not particularly amicable towards pirates. She had already caught sight of the few skeletons hanging, with signs around their necks proclaiming that pirates would meet a grim fate. What a profound bitterness. It truly instilled fear in her, a newcomer. After reflecting on the fallen pirates with deep respect, Jess lamented her own uncertain future. Jack Sparrow stared at those words for a moment, solemnly removing his hat in tribute to the skeletons, before shifting his gaze to the ships near the harbor. Jess observed the deck, which had begun to take on water due to the assault, and lamented, "This ship is going to sink. You must find a new vessel. In just a few months." Jack Sparrow had managed to trade his grand ship for this unremarkable little craft, even daringly venturing into the territory of cannibals, resulting in significant damage to this small vessel. Jess couldn't help but doubt that this little ship would endure long enough to reach the next port. At that moment, she had to concede that Jack Sparrow's luck sometimes bordered on enviable. Chapter 11. I believe we could collaborate to procure some funds and purchase a ship. What do you think, Jack? It is Miss Smith and Miss Roy, and we are indeed pirates, my dear. Jack Sparrow grasped Jess's hand firmly. His gaze fixated on the vessels of the royal port, his eyes whirling as a thought struck him. What do you desire? Jess's eyes reflected a flicker of anger. She was not keen on witnessing Jack Sparrow recklessly courting death once more, a scenario that had unfolded more than once. Jack Sparrow waggled his finger, gesturing towards the ships at the royal port, and slowly elucidated, "You see, I require a ship to reclaim the Black Pearl." "You are mad. Barbossa is no trifling adversary," Jess retorted, pursing her lips. The rumors she had gleaned during her occasional visits to Turtle Island regarding Barbossa left her feeling quite anxious about his current state. It was not her cowardice. During their rest stops, tales from the fishing village spoke of a cursed ship of undead, frantically amassing gold coins. Both Jack and she had heard these tales, and yet he remained so fixated. Jack Sparrow draped his arm around Jess's shoulders and commanded, "A crew must adhere to the captain's every word, Jess. Besides, I am aware of why Barbossa and his crew became as they are. There is no need to fear for our safety, for I have devised a plan." Why? Jess was not particularly curious about his grand scheme, but she was intrigued by the nature of this ominous undead. Was it merely a rumor, or was there truth to it? The curse of betrayal. "It is time for us to depart." Jack Sparrow spoke little, providing an ambiguous reply before urging Jess to move along. "It seems you are reluctant to divulge much information." Jess pouted, "Then I shall not accompany you to your demise." "Very well, Then you may watch as I seek out Barbassa. Perhaps in the end, he might even grant you my ashes." Jack Sparrow released Jess's hand and feigned indifference as he strode ahead. "All right, I shall accompany you." Jess hurried to follow in Jack Sparrow's wake. It was certainly not out of fear for his life or the trouble Barbassa might cause her. Rather, it was simply due to the unfamiliarity of this place after the ship's sinking that compelled her to stay close to him. "Good girl. Wait, sir." The voice from behind caused Jess's body to tense, a reflex honed over months of following Jack Sparrow on their maritime adventures, for her captain had a penchant for trouble. Jess instinctively reached for the dagger at her waist, poised to drive it into the intruder's neck should the situation turn dire, and then escape with Jack Sparrow. "Do not act rashly, my dear," Jack Sparrow whispered to her before turning to face the individual. "What brings you here, sir?" Without waiting for an introduction, the man, listening intently, spoke gravely. "Mr. Smith and Miss Roy, you are required to pay a fare of 1 shilling for the ferry." And Jack Sparrow tossed 3 shillings onto his ledger and provocatively remarked, "Why not allow me to gift you 3 shillings, good sir?" It bewildered Jess. She had thought such moral decay was more prevalent among the nobility. It had been quite some time since she had encountered any local authority figures on Turtle Island. "It is merely due to your limited understanding," Miss Roy said, turning to grasp Jess's hand while deftly pilfering a purse, which she then tossed to Jess. "It seems they are hosting some sort of affair here. However, it is of no concern to us. We shall seize the ship and depart." Jess, upon receiving the purse, eagerly opened it to inspect its contents. To her delight, she discovered £1.30. Quite a stroke of fortune, indeed. Having struck gold with a wealthy patron. Chapter 12. This modest windfall momentarily captivated Jess's spirits, prompting her to seek out the figure of Jack Sparrow. "Hey, sir. You cannot enter. This is the royal dock, and commoners are prohibited from entry," a soldier declared, brandishing his sword to block Jack Sparrow's path. "My apologies. But should I catch a glimpse, I would surely inform you," Jack retorted. Just as he attempted to proceed, he was halted once more by the soldier. Pointing towards a nearby area filled with laughter, he inquired, "What makes it so that 2 fine soldiers such as yourselves are barred from enjoying the festivities?" "Because someone must ensure that the common folk do not trespass into the docks," the soldier replied. "This is a noble pursuit," Jack Sparrow remarked, pointing at the 2 ships. "Yet I believe that vessel over there pales in comparison to one of ours here. The Undaunted is indeed the sovereign of the seas, but when it comes to speed, none can rival the Interceptor. I am aware of a ship that surpasses it in swiftness. It is nearly uncatchable, the Black Pearl." The soldiers lowered their voices, seemingly in awe of the legendary ship. Upon hearing the name Black Pearl, Jack Sparrow paused for a moment before continuing forward. One soldier chuckled, proclaiming, "Impossible. No tangible ship can match the Interceptor. No, 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 it exists. It is indeed the Black Pearl. No, 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 it does not exist." Jack Sparrow rolled his eyes at the 2 soldiers behind him and then slowly made his way to the bow of the ship. "God, please," Jess exclaimed. "If she is guilty, let God punish her, rather than allowing Jack Sparrow to squander her limited lifespan and patience." Amidst the soldiers' quarrel, Jack Sparrow successfully slipped away and boarded the Interceptor, scrutinizing the ship with a discerning eye. Jess remained at the harbor, listening to the soldiers' heated exchange and feeling uneasy about entering, choosing instead to stay and observe from the shadows. Although the 2 guards were somewhat foolish and slow-witted, they soon noticed that Jack Sparrow had boarded the vessel. "Step away. You cannot be here," the 2 soldiers shouted as they brandished their weapons and rushed onto the ship. Captain Jack Sparrow grasped the helm and sighed, "Forgive me, but this vessel is truly magnificent. What is your name? Smith or Smithy, if you prefer." He winked at the 2 soldiers. "What brings you to Royal Port? Indeed, you cannot speak falsehoods." One soldier raised his firearm higher, evidently anxious. "I confess. I aspire to commandeer a ship, rally a crew in Tortuga, and indulge in plunder and pillage, subsequently eliminating those traitors." Jack Sparrow sought to further bewilder the soldiers, stalling for time to conceive a stratagem. However, it became apparent that the soldiers' ignorance was rather profound. "I have warned against deceit," one soldier exclaimed. "I believe he speaks the truth." Jack Sparrow furrowed his brow. This was not the trajectory he had envisioned. If this were indeed the truth, he would not divulge it to us. Jack prepared to stir the waters once more, hoping to prolong their discourse. "You are not inclined to believe even the truth?" The soldier's countenance fell. Jack Sparrow observed the 2 firearms drawing nearer, yet remained unruffled. "Gentlemen, do you not wish to hear a tale of piracy? For I assure you, The affairs upon the high seas are far more intriguing than this mere sentinel duty, mysterious and perilous. I believe it would be worth your while to listen, Torso. How can one heed the words of a pirate? He ought to be confined to the dungeon at once. Though Tozo uttered these words, his gaze was uncertain, revealing a flicker of emotion. Chapter 13. Just as Captain Jack Sparrow was preparing to narrate his legendary exploits as a pirate, a lady plummeted from the ramparts. Elizabeth, listening to Norrington's self-indulgent discourse, merely wished for him to finish his tedious speech so that she could rid herself of this infernal, suffocating dress. Goodness! She was on the verge of asphyxiation. Norrington, noticing Elizabeth's silence after his lengthy monologue, assumed she was dissatisfied with his arrangements. However, when he turned to look, he discovered that Elizabeth had already plunged into the sea. In a panic, he lunged toward the edge of the rampart, gazing at the rippling water, and cried out, "Elizabeth! Oh, someone has fallen overboard. That gentleman above, your shouting would be better served by simply leaping in after her," thought Jace. Nevertheless, this was indeed fortuitous news. Jack seized this opportunity to emerge. Jack Sparrow, of course, also beheld the lady's descent. He turned to the two soldiers beside him and inquired if they could swim. Both shook their heads simultaneously, prompting Jack to roll his eyes at the useless navy. He entrusted them with his hat, gun, and sword, instructing them to take good care of his belongings. Jace widened his eyes as he witnessed Jack place his possessions upon the soldiers and then leap into the water. "I have truly had enough of you, Jack Sparrow." Jace seethed inwardly, the well-meaning Jack. Well, fine. He is a good man. And I am the villain. As Jess retreated into the bustling crowd, he discerned that the woman who had fallen was undoubtedly of noble descent. The gentleman above her exhibited a palpable anxiety, likely on the verge of dispatching soldiers for her rescue. Given her agility, she seemed less capable of escaping than Jack Sparrow. It would be wiser for her to blend into the throng. The crowd served as an ideal stage for observation, and when Jack Sparrow rescued her, he managed to maneuver through the masses just in time to see her. She had resolved firmly in her mind. Jack Sparrow averted his gaze, using his sword to sever the laces of the corset that had constricted her breath. Elizabeth finally felt the sweet relief of air and vowed never to don those so-called fashionable noble dresses again. Jack Sparrow noticed the coin attached to the necklace around her neck, his expression one of surprise as he lowered his head and muttered to himself, "Where did you acquire that?" Jess observed the leading nobleman accompanied by a cadre of soldiers making their way to the royal port, unable to suppress an exclamation of, "Oh, God, we're in trouble," a sentiment echoed by both Jess and Jack Sparrow. A contingent of Navy officers was no trivial matter. The sight of the hanged corpse outside made their disdain and loathing for pirates abundantly clear. Jess slowly concealed his dagger within his sleeve, sighing as he hoped to alleviate some of Jack Sparrow's burdens soon. Norrington regarded the strangely attired individual and then glanced at the unharmed Elizabeth, finally exhaling in relief. He turned, raising his sword and addressing Jack Sparrow with grave seriousness, "Stand up," looking once more at the young lady. Oh, she had already returned to her father's embrace. The father appeared to be rather formidable. Upon witnessing a soldier brandishing Elizabeth's torn corset and preparing to issue a death sentence, he immediately pointed towards Jack Sparrow. Fire. He would not permit his daughter to be dishonored by such peculiar individuals. Elizabeth interjected, "Father, Brigadier, are you truly going to execute my savior?" Upon hearing her words, Norrington reluctantly sheathed his sword. In a fleeting moment of calm, he approached Jack Sparrow and extended his hand. "Very well, I believe a single thank you suffices." However, Jack was not convinced of his sincerity. Sure enough, as Jack tentatively reached out, Norrington seized his arm and rolled up his sleeve, revealing the emblem of the East India Trading Company. "We have met before, Haven Tiwi, pirate?" Chapter 14. At this moment, the benevolent father was agitated. He had found another justification to condemn Jack Sparrow. "Bind him. Aim your weapons at him. Gillette, fetch some iron chains." Norrington, observing the tattoo, remarked, Well, Jack Sparrow?" "More precisely, Captain Jack Sparrow." "Captain, then where is your ship?" Norrington scanned the vicinity and turned to mock Jack Sparrow. "I am searching for." At that moment, the two soldiers from before eagerly interjected. "He said he is going to commandeer a vessel. I have long asserted that his words hold truth." The soldier appears to be entangled in the previous dispute. "These are his possessions, Commander." "Damn, how did this soldier become so astute?" Jack Sparrow silently cursed within. Norrington cast a scornful glance, then picked up item after item. A captain's hat. Yet, it is rather appealing. A compass that cannot point north. It is indeed one of a kind. If you refer to its malfunction, Norrington set it aside and instead grasped the sword, an unsatisfactory blade, as you rightly pointed out. A firearm with but a single unchambered bullet. Jack Sparrow hesitated, as he recalled from a distance that the gun was intended for Barbassa. Undoubtedly. You are the most inept pirate I have ever encountered. Jack Sparrow shrugged, displaying his indifference. Jess tightened her grip on the dagger, while she could not hear their exchange. Escaping from a throng of soldiers seemed utterly implausible. Jack Sparrow lacked leverage over these dignitaries, unless he was cunningly ensnared by the soldiers. Elizabeth, in a fit of rage, shouted at Norrington, "He saved me. You cannot do this. Indeed, you cannot do this." Jack Sparrow seemed to add fuel to the fire of Norrington's fury. In a poignant display of unreciprocated affection, Elizabeth, indifferent to the feelings of Commodore Norrington, performed a compelling act before the besotted officer. As she spoke, she sauntered towards Captain Jack Sparrow, which presented him with an opportune moment. Yes, come here," thought Jack Sparrow. Carefully gauging the distance, he seized the moment to ensnare Elizabeth with a chain around her neck. "Ladies and gentlemen, you no longer possess the liberty to act recklessly," he declared. "Elizabeth," cried her unfortunate father. Norrington, witnessing Elizabeth bound by the chain, clenched his teeth and bellowed at Jack Sparrow, "What do you want?" "My possessions, and release me." Jack Sparrow provocatively leaned closer to Elizabeth, tauntingly regarding Norrington. The Commodore's gaze towards Elizabeth was imbued with both affection and resignation. He yielded, nodding for his soldiers to relinquish Jack Sparrow's belongings to him. "Oh, Miss Elizabeth, I might require your assistance, as I am currently unable to don my hat," Jack Sparrow proclaimed loudly without a hint of modesty. Elizabeth's eyes reflected her disdain for the despicable pirate, yet she complied, donning his captain's hat and fastening his belt around her waist, securing his sword and pistol. "Good girl," he remarked. Jack Sparrow winked at Jess, who couldn't help but give a thumbs up. Jack Sparrow's fortune was indeed an enigma. At times, it was catastrophic, while at others, it was enviably splendid. Seizing the moment, Jack Sparrow forcefully pushed Elizabeth in the direction of Norrington and made his escape, leaving behind a taunting remark. "You shall forever remember this day when you almost captured the illustrious Captain Jack Sparrow. Notice, examination, updates will be paused for a while." Chapter 15. Observing the situation, Jess sheathed her dagger and leaned against the wall, feigning slumber as she awaited the passing naval officers to move further down the alley. Suddenly, a pair of hands emerged from behind a statue by the roadside, pulling her inside and promptly covering her mouth. Instinctively, Jess elbowed backward, but her strike was intercepted. Swiftly drawing her dagger, she attempted to stab backward, only to have her assailant evade her. "Woo!" came a startled exclamation. Leaning against the wall, Jack Sparrow remarked softly, "Nice move, but unfortunately, rather futile." As his words fell, Jess shot him a fierce glare. All right. Can't a good crew member offer a hug to a captain who has just escaped peril?" This time, Jess refrained from glaring and instead aimed a kick. However, before she could make contact, Jack Sparrow seized her ankle, causing Jess to stumble towards him in surprise. She had never felt so humiliated. She vowed that she would surely kill Jack Sparrow. Tap, 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 the sound of soldiers marching echoed from afar. They cast a fleeting glance at the wild mandarin ducks beside the statues before resolutely continuing their search. "Well, there is a reason for everything. You may release your grip now, Captain," Jess remarked with a cold snort. Jack Sparrow relinquished his hold, saying, "It seems this is not a safe place after all. Let us discuss our matters in a more secure location." Jack Sparrow discovered a half-open door and peered through the crack to find it led into a blacksmith's shop. The two men stepped inside and felt reassured upon confirming that the only occupant was a drunken old man slumped beside a chair cluttered with bottles. Jack Sparrow tossed aside his tricorn hat in irritation, his gaze fixating on the chain at his side. "First, free me from this damned iron chain, Jess. This is quite troublesome. Why didn't you simply take advantage of that noble lady to escape earlier? Then you wouldn't be burdened with this bothersome chain," Jess retorted, though his hands busied themselves with the iron tongs, using an unshaped sword from the furnace to sever the chain. "You might be surprised by what I discerned from that kind lady," Jack Sparrow began, but before Jess could inquire further, the sound of approaching footsteps reached their ears. "Now is not the time to share that. We must hide," he urged. Jess, lacking the reflexes of his companion, had no time to seek a hiding spot and was left standing in place. Perhaps he should be grateful that her attire resembled that of a commoner? "We'll observe the soldiers searching for pirates on the street and hastily returned," aware that his master's penchant for drunkenness might render him oblivious to even the most obvious intrusions. Upon entering, Will beheld Jess, who was grasping a sword with a pair of tongs. "Good day, miss. May I inquire your name?" he asked. "Jess. Simply call me Jess. I entered just now and, finding no one about, decided to peruse at my leisure. You must be the blacksmith here. What is your name? Could you recommend a sword suitable for a lady?" Jess nonchalantly tossed the sword into a bucket of water. "I must inform you that the swords in the blacksmith shop are not to be handled indiscriminately. However, it seems this is your first visit, so I shall excuse it," Will replied, handing her a lighter sword. "This one might be well suited for you. Allow me a moment to examine the other swords." As Jess settled into her seat, her eyes widened in astonishment. She noticed Captain Jack Sparrow's hat prominently displayed in plain sight. "Jack, your knack for attracting trouble is truly impressive," Jess mused, convinced that anyone with a modicum of sense would recognize that others had entered the shop. "Miss Jess, aside from yourself, has anyone else come through here?" Will inquired suspiciously, holding the captain's hat. Jess stroked her chin, feigning deep contemplation. "I believe not, though I did overhear talk on the street of a pirate threatening a noble lady." "Are you suggesting that this pirate may have visited here?" "I believe so. Will has already grasped the sword beside him. He may still be here. So you must exercise caution. I shall inform the soldiers of the situation at once. Please accompany me." Chapter 16. Jack Sparrow initially intended for Jess to draw attention while he incapacitated Will, yet it seems he has already been discovered. Jack Sparrow struck Will's hand with his sword, forcing him to relinquish his hat. "Are you the pirate?" Jack Sparrow inquired, gazing at Will, suddenly feeling a sense of familiarity. "You appear quite familiar. Have I threatened you in the past?" "I have no desire to associate with pirates." Will gestured discreetly towards Jess. Jess, feigning ignorance, continued his antics with a mischievous flair. "Mr. Will, is this the pirate? I'm terrified." "Oh, that seems rather exaggerated, Jess." Jack Sparrow observed Jess's performance, his lips twitching in amusement. "Jess, your acting is truly—" Jess was about to utter another remark when Will seized the sword from the water bucket and pressed it against Jess's neck. "Put down the sword, pirate." "Shit. Why must every capture involve threatening a lady? Gentlemen, where is your chivalry?" Though Jess harbored such thoughts, he attempted to deceive with a pitiful tone. "Will, what purpose does it serve to hold me here? You are a pirate just like him." "No, Will, how could I possibly be in league with that filthy, shameless scoundrel of a pirate? I merely came to purchase a sword for my brother. I had no inkling that a pirate resided here before my arrival. My thoughts were solely fixated on the sword's blade. How could I have noticed that hat?" Jess's earnest tone caused Will to hesitate slightly. Captain Jack Sparrow, observing Jess's sincere expression, couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. It appeared that Jess harbored quite the grudge against him. Noticing Will's indecision, Jess acted without a second thought, elbowing the person behind him, then retaliating by delivering a kick to Will's chest. Will abruptly released his sword, and Jess dashed towards the back of Jack Sparrow. "Apologies, but I am indeed a pirate," Jess declared, peering from behind Jack Sparrow. "Your gentleman's decorum is truly a cause for great concern." Will swiftly retrieved his sword, rising to face Jack Sparrow. "I believe, Will, you should clear the way." Jess brandished a dagger. "Your pirate companions have attempted to harm Miss Swan. I cannot permit your escape," Will asserted. Jess sensed trouble brewing and glanced at Jack Sparrow, who was fixated on the door. As Jess rushed to open it, Will's sword was quicker, grazing Jess's hair before embedding itself in the door. Jess attempted to dislodge the sword, but it was evidently futile. "He has secured the door. I cannot pull out the sword," Jess exclaimed, looking at Will and gripping the sword tightly in a futile effort. "Does this person not understand how significant hair is to a lady?" Jess approached Will with a dagger in hand, while Jack Sparrow drew his pistol from his waist and aimed it at Will, disengaging the safety. "Do not act impulsively," Jack Sparrow advised kindly. Jace, raking his fingers through his hair, glared fiercely at him. "He has cut several strands of my hair. I merely deceived him. He would have been unconscious and none the wiser." Leaning closer, Jack Sparrow whispered, "But he could be the son of Bill Turner. Is that so?" Jace replied with a laugh, his gaze fixed on Jack Sparrow. Jace had heard many tales from Jack Sparrow, notably those concerning Bill Turner. However, Jace's laughter made Jack Sparrow feel uneasy. It seemed that Jace was genuinely infuriated. "You better be telling the truth, or beware of my reckoning." Chapter 17. As Jack Sparrow turned to glance at the back door, the old blacksmith was suddenly before him, wielding a bottle of liquor, poised to strike his head. Soldiers burst through the door, and Norrington, upon seeing the unexpected Jace, glanced at Will and remarked, "Well done, Mr. Brown and Mr. Turner. You have assisted us in capturing one, if not two, fugitives. I am merely fulfilling my civic duty, officer. The old blacksmith retorted, clutching the bottle. Damn it, damn it. Had I known I would not have sought out Jack Sparrow. This is disastrous, a complete trap. Norrington surveyed Jace and Jack Sparrow, then commanded the soldiers, take them away. Jace and the unconscious Jack Sparrow were brought into a dungeon, which also housed a group of pirates. Jace and Jack Sparrow were unceremoniously thrown into a cell by several soldiers, and Jack Sparrow clumsily landed on Jace. Jace let out a muffled grunt and pushed Jack Sparrow with all his might, but to no avail. The man was simply too heavy. The pirates in the adjacent cell jeered with voices reminiscent of metal scraping against steel. Hey, little lady, come over here. This little lady can't come over now. She's trapped beneath a man. Ha ha ha. Oh, how noisy it was. He longed to silence them all, but alas, his firearms and swords had already been confiscated. Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. Jace called out, while attempting to shove the heavy, odorous man off him. Jack Sparrow was roused from his slumber, propped himself up, rubbed his head, and squinted around. Huh? Jace? Yes, if your brain is still intact, kindly remove yourself from atop me. Jace impatiently retorted. Jack Sparrow managed to sit up. His body still recovering, and aside from his fidgeting hands, Jace thought she might have been grateful for his presence. Upon noticing Jace glaring at him, Jack blinked innocently and said, What's the matter? You've quite the figure. Jace could hardly be bothered to engage with this rogue. After all, the past few months had taught him enough about dealing with such antics. How do we get out of here? I have no desire to meet the gallows. This is indeed the crux of the matter. Perhaps we could wait? Wait for whom, you ask? You never know, do you? It would be prudent for you to possess some certainty. You cannot expect me to foresee every detail, Jace. So, shall we simply await our demise? No. It is a gamble we must take. Jack Sparrow nestled against Jace in a corner. Without hesitation, Jace slapped him, declaring, You have touched me twice already. Remove your filthy hands. Jack Sparrow. Oh, the girl has embraced that fellow. Wow, that man appears utterly inadequate. Come to me, and I shall fulfill your desires. The commotion seemed to awaken Jack Sparrow to the presence of others nearby. He cast a cursory glance at the individuals opposite before returning his gaze elsewhere. Jace, maintaining his composure, kicked Jack Sparrow lightly and addressed the loudest man with nonchalance. He may indeed be lacking, but judging by your pallid appearance, you are hardly any better. The words ignited the man's fury, prompting him to charge at Jace, but alas, he was also confined within the iron bars that separated them. All he could do was unleash a torrent of curses, filthy whore. Jack Sparrow cast another glance at the man, deliberately wrapping his arms around Jace's waist, the warmth of his breath inevitably flushing Jace's ears. Once we are outside, I shall demonstrate just how capable I truly am. Jace, startled like a frightened rabbit, instantly leaped back, distancing himself from Jack Sparrow by 2 meters. Had he been struck on the head by a bottle of wine? Chapter 18. The residual warmth in his ears revealed Jess's embarrassment. Captain, I advise you to be serious. When they remember our intention to hang together, you will no longer entertain such thoughts. Jack Sparrow chuckled at the crimson-faced Jess and declared with utmost sincerity, Fear not, the illustrious Captain Jack Sparrow always has a plan. You didn't mention any plan just now. Still in the works. You might as well say there is none. A loud bang echoed as cannonballs struck the city walls. Jess felt a throbbing pain return to her head. Please, not her, not her. Jack Sparrow peered through a small window and spotted a ship in the distance firing cannonballs. It's the Pearl. The neighboring pirates, having heard of her infamous name, exclaimed in terror, The Black Pearl? I have heard its tale. It has been pillaging for over a decade, leaving no survivors. No survivors? Jess, as if hearing a jest, glanced provocatively at the speaker. Then how did you acquire this information? She felt she could already hear the cries of the people outside and the laughter of pirates plundering. Covering her ears to alleviate the burden, she detested the violence and thievery, yet now, as a pirate herself, she might be compelled to embrace this fate. Upon this thought, she could not help but glance at the man with the dark pearl glimmering through the seam. He remained, as he had been described years prior, not quite resembling a pirate, yet she could not articulate what he resembled instead. Jace, are you all right? Jace wiped the sweat from his brow. Fine, thanks. A cannonball was once again launched towards them, and Jack Sparrow instinctively threw himself over Jace, shielding her beneath him. The wall of the adjacent cell was breached by the cannonball, creating an opening just large enough for an escape. A group of pirates eagerly surged through the gap. Sorry, my friend, it seems fortune does not favor you, the last to depart jeered. It appeared they would need to devise their own escape plan. Jace recalled the dog with a keyring dangling from its neck and promptly patted Jack Sparrow, gesturing towards the canine. Jack Sparrow understood, begrudgingly picking up a discarded bone from next door, attempting to entice the dog holding the keys. "Come here, pup." Jace could hardly bear to witness the scene. Sitting beside Jack Sparrow, she inquired, "Do you truly believe that bone will lure it? Perhaps you should give it a try. It may prefer you." Jack Sparrow abandoned his efforts halfway, plopping down in defeat. Jace then took the bone and gently waved it, and to her surprise, the dog approached. She retrieved the keys from its mouth and affectionately patted its head. "Good boy. You truly succeeded." Jack Sparrow's eyes reflected a hint of astonishment. "Merely fortunate, one might say." Jace, with an air of ostentation, jingled the keychain in his hand. Bang! This time, it was not a cannonball. Jace witnessed a naval officer tumble down the stairs at the entrance to the dungeon, followed by two acquaintances of Jack. Well, look who it is, Teague. Jace, appearing horrified, recoiled behind Jack, concealing the keys from their line of sight. "Captain Jack Sparrow and that woman, the last time we met. We dispatched you to that desolate island. It seems your misfortunes are far from over." Chapter 19. Jack Sparrow regarded the two traitorous crew members with a calmness that unnerved Jace. "Take care of yourselves, gentlemen. The depths of hell have been reserved for you traitors," Jack Sparrow taunted. This evidently struck a nerve with the two traitors, one even reaching out to grasp Jack Sparrow by the throat. Jace, eyes wide, observed the skeletal hand illuminated by the moonlight. "Jack? What is it?" "It's that curse," Jack Sparrow replied, seemingly unperturbed. "Rather intriguing, I assentí it. You know nothing." The crew member's gaze was laced with indifference. Then he released Jack Sparrow's throat and departed. Jace could sense the anguish in that man's eyes. A curse? Yes. Upon noticing the glimmer in Jack Sparrow's eyes, Jess refrained from probing further, yet she could surmise the generality of the matter based on the legends she had heard. "Are we departing tonight, Jack?" she inquired. "No, Jess. I believe we must await the arrival of someone," he replied. "Who?" "You are acquainted with that individual." A thought crossed Jess's mind, prompting a smirk as she murmured, "You truly are a proficient pirate." The following morning, Jess rose from Jack Sparrow's embrace, having heard footsteps that suggested he might indeed be correct this time. Will descended, avoiding eye contact with Jess, and urgently addressed Jack Sparrow. "Sparrow, you are well acquainted with the Black Pearl, are you not?" "I have heard tales of it," Jack replied, casting a glance at Jess, who had callously vacated his arms. The woman who had nestled against him for warmth the previous night had, as anticipated, discarded him once her needs were met. Where will it dock? Where will she anchor? Jack Sparrow perceived this as a rather foolish inquiry. "Have you heard the tale of Captain Barbassa and his band of scoundrels? They hail from Death's Island, a place so obscure that only those who have ventured there could ever locate it. The ship exists, therefore its docking place must surely be real. Where is it?" Will pressed on. At this juncture, Jack Sparrow retorted, "Why do you inquire of me?" "Because you are a pirate," came the response. "Do you wish to become a pirate yourself?" "Never." Will appeared to harbor a genuine loathing for pirates. Jess was intrigued by the expression on his face upon discovering his father's piratical identity. At that moment, Captain Jack Sparrow reclined, averting his gaze from Will. Will had no choice but to announce, "They have captured Miss Swan." "Ah, it seems you aspire to rescue the damsel and win her heart. But that holds no benefit for me, my friend. It appears you must undertake this journey alone." Jack Sparrow's cunning traps were always a source of amusement for Jess, who relished witnessing others fall victim to his schemes. "I can rescue you all." This unexpected declaration took Jack Sparrow by surprise, who retorted, "How so?" "The key has been swallowed by that guard dog. This cell is of my own design. These are semi-fixed iron chains. If we position a wooden plank to create a lever, we can easily lift it with a bit of ingenuity," Will explained. "What is your name?" "Will Turner." "Oh, an abbreviation of William, is it not? A fine name, undoubtedly inherited from your father." "Yes," Will replied, casting a puzzled glance at Jack Sparrow. It seemed he had begun to harbor doubts about you. "Oh no, he has never trusted you," Jess mused. Chapter 20. Mr. Turner, if you manage to extricate us from this predicament, I shall take you aboard the Black Pearl to meet your beloved, and thus we shall have an accord. Jack Sparrow extended his hand. "Mr. Turner, should you facilitate our escape, there would be no need for such formalities. I would gladly escort you to my Black Pearl, and, with the gold belonging to you and your dear one, reclaim my vessel. Come, let us formalize this arrangement that serves solely my interests." Jess cast a sly glance at Will for but a fleeting moment, only to revert to a guise of innocence when he turned to her. Will reached out to clasp Jack Sparrow's hand. Agreed. Agreed. We must be swift lest we attract unwanted attention. Jack Sparrow and Jess armed themselves with their swords and pistols as they stepped outside. Are we to steal a ship? Will inquired, following Jack Sparrow's gaze. That ship? To commandeer, we are to seize that vessel. It is our vernacular, Jess corrected. Suddenly, Jack Sparrow posed a question to Will. I have one last inquiry. Without it, our venture would be futile. To what extent would you sacrifice for that girl? I would gladly die for her. Oh, splendid. Jess sensed Jack Sparrow's gaze upon her, thus concluding that there were no further doubts. What does it mean? He is willing to die for his girl. What is Jack observing her do? Jess feels increasingly burdened by the troubles that accompany Jack Sparrow. The three of them are hiding beneath a small boat as they head toward the sea. Due to Jess's insufficient height, she must grasp the boat's railing. There is but a thin line separating madness from greatness. They often walk hand in hand, and, Jess, my dear, you truly ought to lose some weight. The combined weight of the boat and Jess's sinking form is indeed considerable. Jess, with a flushed face, gritted her teeth and retorted, Be silent, Captain. I believe such words should not escape your lips. The trio climbed aboard, with Jack Sparrow brandishing a pistol, shouting. Everyone remain calm. We have seized control of this vessel. Do not move. Will echoed the call. What a mood killer. Jess glared at the mocking expressions of the Navy with her sword in hand. The three of them cannot command a ship, especially with a woman among them. They will never navigate out of this dock. Boy, I'm Captain Jack Sparrow, he declared, aiming the gun at the leader and releasing the safety. Savvy? Once those bothersome Navy men were dispatched, Jack Sparrow began instructing Will to hoist the sails, but it was evident, as the gentleman had just stated, that they might not escape this dock. Is it possible to have some rum here? Jess inquired while seated on the steps, observing Captain Jack Sparrow directing orders to William. Jack Sparrow cast his gaze towards the approaching interceptor, a smirk forming on his lips, for rum was near at hand. The naval officers brandished their grappling hooks, securing them to the ship's side. Jack Sparrow, accompanied by Jess and Will, swung aboard the already unfurled sails of the interceptor. The vessel was indeed commendable, yet it paled in comparison to the Black Pearl. Jess severed the ropes with his sword, just as Norrington aboard the Dauntless regained his composure and commanded, Return to the ship. Thank you, Commodore. You have saved us a considerable amount of effort. Jess remarked, finding a strange sense of satisfaction in Norrington's scowling countenance. Unable to catch up with the interceptor, the soldiers aboard the ship, exasperated, unleashed their bullets in frustration towards the fleeing vessel. Jess shielded his head and glanced at Jack Sparrow. Their eyes met, and they exchanged a knowing smile. You are not afraid of his cannonballs. We are within range. Jess teased. Chapter 21. Jess, please trust your captain. He always finds a way to resolve such matters. Jack Sparrow winked at Jess. Upon noticing the Dauntless had failed to pursue them, Jess exhaled a sigh of relief and curiously inquired of Jack Sparrow, What did you do? I merely locked the helm in place, my dear. They cannot keep up with us now. Jack Sparrow replied nonchalantly. Well, they must truly despise you now. Jess exclaimed, doubling over with laughter, already envisioning the dark scowls on the faces of that group of naval officers. After laughing for quite some time, Jess felt a delayed weariness wash over him. Thus, the Gentleman St. party segment was about to commence. I must take a brief respite, esteemed captain. Your crew hopes that you refrain from causing any disturbances with your temporary crew member. Very well, young Jess. At that moment, Jack Sparrow exhibited a remarkable understanding. Once he ensured that Jess had entered the captain's quarters, Will turned to Jack Sparrow and inquired, Jack, you are familiar with my father, Bill Turner, are you not? It was my name that led you to decide to assist me. Jack Sparrow readily acknowledged, Indeed, I know him. I may be among the few who refer to him as Bill Turner. Most call him the Lace King. He is quite the admirable pirate. Perhaps it was merely an illusion, but Will detected a hint of nostalgia in his words. Yet, this did not justify his father's association with piracy, for in Will's eyes, pirates were filthy, shameless, and ruthless. His father was nothing of the sort. Hence, he retorted, My father is not a pirate. He is a merchant sailor, a respectable and law-abiding man. At that moment, Jack Sparrow was not in a particularly good mood. He was eager to reclaim his beloved Black Pearl and had hoped that Will Turner could engage him in more pleasant conversation. However, it seemed that he was merely adding fuel to the fire, which was quite vexing. He rolled his eyes and replied, He is a pirate, a scoundrel. My father is not a pirate. Jasper longed to drift into slumber until reaching her destination. However, scarcely had she reclined when the contentious voices of two men aboard the vessel erupted, echoing through the door as though a brawl were imminent. She massaged her throbbing temples and, grasping her dagger, made her way to the bow. "Gentlemen, your discourse appears rather unfriendly. I had anticipated a more amicable exchange." Will Turner brandished his sword menacingly at Jack Sparrow, seemingly poised to strike him down. "This is none of your concern, Miss Jess. Jess, you must trust me. I am not one to instigate trouble. It is merely that he insists on a duel," Jack Sparrow implored, attempting to placate Jess as he sensed her rising ire. Jess shot a piercing glare at Jack Sparrow before casting her gaze upon Will, a fleeting vision of the mischievous youth she once encountered in Tortuga flashing before her eyes. With resolute determination, she steered the helm, guiding the mast closer to the ocean's surface. "Mr. Weil, I harbor no interest in your conversation, nor do I care to know the cause of your recent altercation. However, allow me to elucidate. Disturbing a lady's repose shall not go unpunished," Jess declared. Then turned her attention to the intrigued Jack Sparrow. "Respected Captain, maintain a steady course. You will inform him of our destination, will you not?" "Indeed, young Will. Heed my words. The singular rule that governs us is this: what one may do and what one may not. You may choose to believe that your father is both a pirate and a good man, or you may struggle with the acceptance of your piratical lineage, which will ultimately lead you to walk the same path as us. For instance, I can accompany Jess, yet I cannot navigate to Tortuga alongside her, savvy? Thus, Captain Jack Sparrow steered the helm, urging Will to return aboard the ship, brandishing a sword before him. "Can you sail under the command of a pirate, or cannot you?" Chapter 22. Tortuga? Will accepted the sword. Tortuga. The longing in Jack Sparrow's eyes was profoundly sincere. "At long last, we have returned to this chaotic yet liberating place." Jess walked beside Jack Sparrow, a necklace of gold coins swinging in her grasp. This locale remained as beautiful as ever, brimming with the scent of rum and the debauchery of both men and women. More importantly, it is indeed lamentable for one to have never experienced the vivid vibrance of Tortuga, savvy? Sensing the discomfort upon Will's countenance, Jack inquired, "What do you think?" Will surveyed his surroundings, his brow furrowed, yet he replied, "It's rather decent. Allow me to enlighten you." Jack Sparrow had no intention of heeding the ramblings of Jack's, for he had witnessed a woman casting a fiery glare upon him, an expression he had seen in many a woman's eyes before, one that signified the sting of betrayal. Oh, a spectacle was about to unfold. Turning his head, Jack Sparrow beheld the red-haired lady, and, with a friendly gesture, exclaimed, "Scarlet." Yet, the beauty was not so cordial. She swiftly delivered a slap to Jack Sparrow and, with her skirts in tow, stormed away in a fit of rage. "Was that slap intended for me?" Jack Sparrow gazed in confusion at Will and Jess. Another blonde beauty approached, whom Jack Sparrow clearly recognized, Giselle. "Who are they?" Jess inquired, casting a pointed glance at the retreating figure and then at Jack Sparrow. The latter seemed momentarily dazed by the slap, still struggling to comprehend the situation. "What?" His response only incited the wrath of the lovely woman, resulting in yet another slap. Oh, merely witnessing it was painful. Just as Jess contemplated a chuckle, Jack Sparrow shot her a glance, prompting Jess to straighten her lips. Though she could not resist a teasing remark, "It seems the captain has left quite a trail of romantic entanglements behind." To which she added, "I might interpret this as jealousy, my dear." "Never." Upon hearing this, Jess felt a chill run down her spine. Jack Sparrow, noticing Jess's uncontrollable smirk, remarked, "Perhaps I deserve that slap." Jack Sparrow, accompanied by Jess and Will, made his way to the pigsty, where Will, carrying a bucket of water, lunged towards Gibbs. "Perish, you lazy fool." After being doused with water, Gibbs cursed and brandished a knife at Jack Sparrow. However, upon recognizing him, his demeanor shifted entirely. "Mother's love, Jack, before rousing someone, you ought to consider the misfortune it may invite." "Ah, fortuitously. I know precisely how to handle this." The awakened individual buys a drink for the drowsy one, who, while imbibing, listens to the suggestions of the sober. "Very well, let us commence." Jack Sparrow pulled Gibbs back a few paces. Jess approached with another bucket of water aimed at Gibbs. "For heaven's sake, I am already awake," Gibbs exclaimed. Jess regarded him calmly. "Your odor is quite overwhelming, sir." "Wait, a woman?" Gibbs reiterated, casting another glance. "Jack, you must understand that having a woman aboard brings ill fortune. Have you not learned from past experiences?" "I believe this gentleman could benefit from another shower," Jess replied with a smirk, directing his gaze at Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow twitched his lips. "Rest assured, Gibbs, it is quite possible that without her, your predicament would be even worse, and as for past events, even without her, they would have merely been delayed by a few days." Chapter 23. the land of freedom, her most beloved place. Rum, rum, rum. The glint in Jace's eyes revealed a profound anticipation, while Jack Sparrow felt as though he was being pierced by that gaze. He feigned ignorance and said to Jace, "Be vigilant of your surroundings." Accompanied by Gibbs, he made his way to a secluded corner. Jace, momentarily disheartened, turned his cunning gaze toward Will and echoed, "Be vigilant of your surroundings." After speaking, Jace disregarded Will and joyfully dashed toward the bar, akin to a bird returning to its nest. Having been away for so long, she craved the rum here, unable to resist. Jack Sparrow, that unreliable captain, should not expect her to keep an eye on Will for him. "What kind of escapade are you concocting?" Gibbs scanned the vicinity to ensure all was well and leaned closer to Jack Sparrow. Jack swallowed a mouthful of rum, his gaze intermittently drifting toward Jace's departing figure. "I am in search of the Black Pearl." Gibbs appeared startled by Jack Sparrow's revelation, nearly spewing his drink. "I know where she is. I intend to reclaim her." "Jack, only a fool would undertake such a venture. You are more familiar with the legends of the Black Pearl than I. That is precisely why I have a deeper understanding of Barbassa. All I require is a crew of sailors. It is said that Barbassa would not foolishly indulge in reckless adventures nor heed the suggestions of others. With others present, Gibbs kept his voice low, laden with implication. "Thank heavens, I am not a fool. I cannot believe you. Why do you think Barbassa would return your ship?" Jace had waited for a considerable time before finally catching sight of the beloved liquor and casually greeted the young proprietor of the Free Kingdom, Royan. "Hey." Royan exclaimed in surprise, for it had been quite a while since he had seen Jace active on the island. He had thought she might have fallen victim to her enemies. "Where have you been? I haven't seen you in ages. Charlie mentioned that you haven't taken on any contracts. Yet I've been unable to find you." "Oh, yes, that is quite normal. I have been at sea for several months now, Royan. I am a pirate now." Jace shrugged, glancing at Jack Sparrow, who was drinking with Gibbs. Royan placed an arm around Jace's shoulder. "Is that so? Have you managed to uncover any treasures alongside your captain in these past months?" "Treasure has yet to reveal itself, but troubles have been piling up one after another." "Well, I am nearly accustomed to it. It's quite maddening," Jace muttered to herself before continuing, "but perhaps something will come my way soon. By the way, do you know anything about Jack Sparrow? I wish to learn more about him, as the tales of maritime adventures I have heard from this Jack Sparrow are a mix of truth and fiction, utterly unreliable." Royan furrowed his brow. "Don't tell me your captain is him. What's wrong?" Jace inquired, curious. "He's a jinx. All pirates say so. You'd best hurry," Royan began, but then faltered as he noticed Jack Sparrow approaching with an enigmatic glance directed towards him. Jace cast a perplexed glance at him, hastily pondering whether to distance himself from this unreliable captain. Jack Sparrow noticed Jace's upward gaze, beaming with a smile as he remarked, regrettably, "You cannot heed your friend's advice. After all, you sold yourself to me several years ago. Were you not engaged in conversation with the first mate? Now that it is concluded, we must depart, Jace." Jack Sparrow briefly surveyed Royan before seizing Jace's wrist. Chapter 24. Royan felt as though he were being scrutinized by a tiger, daring only to retract his words meant to intercept Jace. Unfortunately, Jace remained oblivious to their exchanged glances. She grasped Jack Sparrow's hand and bid farewell, saying, "Let us go, Royan. I am leaving. Best of luck, Jace." Royan, observing the satisfaction in Jack Sparrow's eyes, finally exhaled in relief. It was only upon their departure that he realized a considerable amount of rum seemed to be missing. These two had not settled their bill. Jack Sparrow, rum in hand, led Jace along, inquiring, "Is he your friend?" "More or less. I enjoy the spirits from that place. It boasts the finest rum in Tortuga." Jace shrugged off Jack Sparrow's hand and clinked bottles with him. "Is that so?" Jack Sparrow, unfazed by Jace's gesture, took another sip and found it indeed delightful. "What are we doing out here? Do you have something on your mind?" Jace regarded Jack Sparrow with curiosity. "What about Will? Are you not concerned he might abscond with the ship? He's your trump card. Gibbs and the hidden cards are recruiting sailors, and he still requires me to accompany him to Death Island in search of his treasure." Jack Sparrow, while speaking, restlessly extended his hand towards Jess's waist. "I currently have a dagger at my side. You'd best be cautious, Captain, lest it suddenly unsheath and wound you." "Jess, do you not think it rather cruel to deprive Captain Jack Sparrow of his sleep?" Jack Sparrow feigned distress. "Oh, not this again. I am utterly weary of his theatrics. I am neither a courtesan nor Jack's paramour." "Silence, Jack Sparrow. I have grown tired of your words spoken to those women innumerable times," Jess retorted with irritation. Seeing his efforts fruitless, Jack Sparrow felt a pang of discontent, inexplicably reminded of the image of Royan with his arm around Jess, which only deepened his dissatisfaction. The rum in Jess's hand was snatched away by Jack Sparrow, who consumed it entirely. Just as she intended to protest, Jack Sparrow captured her lips, transferring the rum from his mouth to hers. Jess, quick to react, darkened her expression and kicked Jack Sparrow away. Ugh, I believe I ought to cleanse my mouth. Jess glared at Jack Sparrow. Ouch, was that truly necessary, Jess? Jack Sparrow winced from the impact. Since arriving on this island, Jess had witnessed her fair share of romantic entanglements, yet she had grown numb to such displays. These emotional matters seemed far less valuable than gold. My captain. Let us hope there will not be a next time. However, this does not imply that Jess feels compelled to barter these for coin. The following day, we'll observe the cold indifference on Jace's face as she exited the captain's quarters. Perplexed, he inquired of Jack, who was also leaving, "What have you done to provoke her?" You would have to direct that question to her. After all, a woman's heart is as inscrutable as the depths of the ocean, is it not? Jack Sparrow gestured elegantly toward Jace. You appear to be in distress. Who says that? Jack Sparrow frowned at Will. I do not share that sentiment. As long as you are aware of it, Captain. Without another glance, Jack Sparrow strode down the gangway. Jace eyed the row of sailors before her, then glanced at Jack Sparrow, pondering the criteria he employed in his selections. Were they as mad as he, or merely opportunists seeking to maximize their gains? A cursory glance revealed a diverse assortment, including one wearing a hat. It seemed to be a lady. Jace shot a sidelong glance at Jack Sparrow, who returned her gaze and tossed her a playful kiss. Chapter 25. Jace turned back. It must certainly be a lady, and one with whom he had some entanglement. Look at these sailors standing here, all loyal souls who have grown up on this livelihood, Gibbs remarked, pausing before adding. And they are all quite mad. Madness, perhaps, was exactly what Jack desired. Jace regarded Jack Sparrow, ever since she had pilfered that gold coin. Her life had been anything but tranquil. One might argue that it was a form of enforced madness, indeed. TSK. Will observe the sailors with a peculiar expression. Is this truly your robust crew? Jack Sparrow approached a man with a parrot perched on his shoulder. You sailor. Cotton, Captain. Mr. Cotton. Do you possess the courage and resolve to obey orders, remaining steadfast even in the face of death and peril? Not receiving a response, he reiterated, Mr. Cotton. Please answer me. Gibbs stepped forward to clarify. He is mute. Poor fellow. His tongue was severed, so he trained an owl to speak on his behalf. How he managed that remains a mystery to all. Witnessing Jack Sparrow's predicament, Jess stifled a laugh, only to be met with Jack's sharp gaze, which prompted him to ruffle Jess's hair vigorously. Oh, Jack Sparrow, you scoundrel. Haven't I told you time and again that a girl's hair is precious? Jess retorted, indignantly moving to Will's side. Jack Sparrow then turned back to the parrot. Mr. Cotton's parrot, please respond to this inquiry. Set sail. Set sail. Gibbs interjected. We typically interpret that as yes. Indeed, that is the meaning, Jack Sparrow replied, then turned to Will. Are you satisfied now? You have proven they are a bunch of lunatics. Will remarked, gazing at Jack with a hint of confusion. What benefit do we derive from this? Jesse turned his gaze towards the source of the voice, his eyes illuminating with recognition. The young woman, after Jack Sparrow lifted her hat, delivered a swift slap across his face. The sound resonated sharply. Oh. This was certainly more forceful than the encounters with the previous two ladies. Wait, why does this woman seem so familiar? I dare say you might feel unjustly accused for this slap, Will remarked, observing the lady. No, it is not unjust, Jack Sparrow retorted, casting a scornful glare at Jessie, before turning to the lady with an ingratiating smile. Maria, you have stolen my ship. Jessie, quick on the uptake, seized Maria's hand. Madam, I believe once is sufficient, especially since you still await the benefits he has to offer. Am I right? Maria turned to Jessie, her pupils slightly dilating as she bellowed. Oh, it's you. A swindler allied with this scoundrel. Just then, Jessie recalled who she was. After disembarking from the smuggling ship, they had beckoned sailors in Tortuga, even in the absence of a vessel. Yes, you heard correctly, no ship at all, as the smuggling ship had been sold off for a handful of rum. It was at that moment that the naive yet ship-owning Maria entered the considerations of Jessie and Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow first regaled her with tales of his illustrious pirate life, igniting within her an insatiable yearning. Then, with feigned adoration, Jess proposed to Sparrow that he might serve as a sailor. At this juncture, Sparrow lamented the loss of his ship, eliciting a display of sympathy from Jess, which in turn stirred Maria to reveal her possession of a vessel. Ultimately, as Maria expressed her desire to accompany Jack Sparrow upon the sea. Both Sparrow and Jess intoxicated her and deposited her at a secure inn, making their escape with the ship. In Chapter 26, Jess found himself feeling somewhat guilty as he regarded Maria. After all, she had indeed played a part in their scheme, had she not? The benefits, Jess asserted. Indeed, Jack Sparrow echoed. I am wholeheartedly preparing to return a ship to you. But have you? Maria retorted, lowering her hands. Jack Sparrow clarified. I shall return another vessel to you. Of course, Jess interjected, one far superior to yours. Yes, indeed, a far better one. Jess pointed towards the interceptor on the surface of the sea. Which one? Jack Sparrow inquired, squinting in the direction indicated by Jess. His gaze fixed upon him as he exclaimed, that one. The onlookers certainly noticed, their attention gradually converging upon Jack Sparrow, while Jess harbored doubts that if Sparrow refused, they would seize the ship. Under the weight of their eager gazes, Jack Sparrow acquiesced. Very well, that one it shall be. What do you say? Aye. The voice of Gibbs opposing once more arose. Captain, bringing women aboard spells misfortune, especially with two. Mr. Gibbs, it seems you have forgotten about the pigsty incident. Shall I refresh your memory? Jess threatened. Gibbs immediately sealed his lips. Jess approached Captain Jack Sparrow, gesturing towards Maria. There are always men who relish accruing debts of affection. Are you feeling jealous, Jess? Just now, you shielded me from a slap, Jack Sparrow remarked, extending his hand towards Jess's shoulder. Jess pushed his hand away with her finger. I merely wish to ensure the captain isn't swayed by that slap, lest he steer us astray. Maybe. You might indeed be feeling jealousy? She admired the captain's inexplicable confidence, yet hoped it wouldn't manifest in this circumstance. Perhaps Gibbs's ominous words had taken effect, as they set sail. A torrential rain began to fall, an ill omen indeed. The darkness of night, compounded by the roaring sea, was enough to claim lives. Jess grasped the rope tightly to prevent being swept overboard by the waves, shouting at Jack Sparrow, who held the helm. What direction can you discern with such a wretched compass? Jack Sparrow, unfazed by her outburst, chuckled. Jess, we are not in search of direction. What? Jess, unable to hear his words over the crashing waves, realized she had no choice but to place her trust in the captain navigating the vessel. Gibbs struggled to approach Jack Sparrow, exclaiming, we must lower the sails. Just hold on a little longer. Jack retorted, what makes you so optimistic, Captain? Gibbs clung tightly to whatever he could grasp to avoid falling. Jess observed their conversation, contemplating Jack Sparrow's decisions. Was he considering locating the Black Pearl? Since encountering those undead beings, Jess had come to view Jack Sparrow as increasingly deranged. For the sake of his beloved Black Pearl, Jack was even contemplating taking Will to negotiate with Barbassa, a most reckless notion. Why on earth had she agreed to be his crew member? Simply due to the circumstances at the time? Jack Sparrow sensed an intense gaze fixed upon him. Without turning his head, he continued to stare at the compass and said, Jess, do not look at me like that. You might lead me to believe you have developed feelings for me. Shut up, Jack Sparrow, Jess yelled, using his full name only when angry. I wish the captain would inform your crew of the details instead of leaving them to speculate aimlessly. Chapter 27. All right. Do not be upset, young Jess. I shall tell you everything. Now return to the captain's quarters. Your assistance is not required outside. As you wish, Captain, Jess responded, aiding Will in lowering the sails, which had grown too cold to endure. The warmth of the captain's quarters was inviting, and Jess changed into fresh attire, settling down on the ship to gather his thoughts. Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow. His actions were marked by an unparalleled urgency. Merely a few months prior, he had approached matters with deliberate caution, yet now, what was he so anxious about? His safety? No. He was more concerned for his own well-being than anyone else, for his astute mind was more than capable of ensuring his preservation. As these thoughts pervaded his mind, Jack Sparrow entered the room and noticed the dazed Jace. What occupies your thoughts, Jace? Nothing, Jace replied. Jack Sparrow nodded knowingly. Jace, your eyes betray you whenever you attempt to weave a lie. Then you had best enlighten me about what truly vexes you. Are you worried about me? Jack Sparrow approached the map, noting that they would soon reach their destination, and that this ordeal would soon conclude. Captain, you have not always been this hasty, Jace retorted, refusing to let the change of subject distract him. Jack Sparrow offered no reply, merely drawing closer to Jace, the atmosphere growing increasingly ambiguous. After a prior awkward mishap, Jace had learned his lesson. He raised his hands in surrender and tilted his head back, resignedly stating, All right, you are the captain. and the affairs aboard this ship rest solely in your hands." Indeed, Jack Sparrow seemed satisfied, stepping back a few paces as Jace made a hasty retreat. The torrential rain would eventually subside, and the night would pass. Jace found himself staring blankly at the parrot perched upon the mast, while the crew gazed at the treacherous waters ahead. How perilous this passage was! How many brave sailors had it claimed? Jace gazed at the wreckage of the shattered ship upon the sea, then turned his attention to Jack Sparrow, remaining silent. Do you know the origin of Jack's compass? Very few are privy to the events preceding Jack Sparrow's arrival on Tortuga. He was solely focused on seeking the treasures of the Isle of the Dead, Gibbs reminisced. I met him when he became the captain of the Black Pearl. What? Will glanced at Jack Sparrow, realizing he had never mentioned such a detail. Jack had become markedly more cautious in his actions. It was a hard-earned lesson. Gibbs's words seemed laden with significance. Just as Jace contemplated approaching, Jack Sparrow grasped his wrist, his fingers tapping lightly on Jace's arm, prompting him to halt in confusion. Jack merely cast a glance toward Will and Gibbs, offering no clarification to Jace. After 3 days of treasure hunting, the ship's first mate approached him, stating that the treasure they had uncovered should be divided equally, with the location of the cache being the same. Jack was thrown into disarray, and that night, a mutiny ensued. At that time, Jace was not well acquainted with Jack, but to avoid complications, Barbossa similarly cast both him and Jack onto a deserted island to await their demise. No wonder he appears somewhat will mimic Jack's characteristic evasive maneuvers. Yet Jace seemed quite composed. It bears no relation at all, do you understand? Will, the pirates cast away on Huangdao are typically provided with a pistol, yet it contains but a solitary bullet, rendering it of little use for hunting or signaling for help. However, after 3 weeks of hunger and thirst, that very gun becomes an immense temptation for liberation. Jack and Jess were initially meant to possess 2 pistols, yet Barbossa only bestowed one upon them, allowing Jack to make a gentlemanly choice. Nevertheless, they managed to escape, retaining that single bullet meant for the treacherous first mate. Chapter 28. Barbossa? Will pondered, sensing something amiss. How did Jack and Jess manage to flee that desolate isle? All right, let me tell you. On the other side, Jess regarded Jack Sparrow, who was pulling him along, his lips pressed together in silence. Do not look at me like that, Jess. Everything is part of the plan. Once it concludes, I shall elucidate it to you, just as before. Though aware of Jack Sparrow's propensity for successful schemes, Jess could not suppress his irritation at that knowing gaze of triumph. Jess gripped Jack Sparrow's collar. I know what your plan entails, but you must realize he is not one to adhere to your strategy. If things go awry, Captain, I hope you still possess that glint in your eye. Enough, Jack Sparrow bellowed, glancing anxiously at Jess, his words becoming increasingly hesitant. As a crew member, your sole duty is to obey the captain's decisions. Jace gazed silently at him for a few moments before turning to assist the crew. Jack Sparrow regretfully watched Jace's departing figure as he overheard Gibbs discussing their escape from the island. They had lingered in a shallow area for 3 days and nights, to the point where every marine creature had grown accustomed to their presence. On the 4th morning, they bound several sea turtles with rope, fashioning them into a makeshift raft. Gibbs spoke with utmost seriousness. Will furrowed his brow in confusion, questioning, "They tied up a few sea turtles?" Indeed, sea turtles. But where did he acquire the rope? Gibbs found himself momentarily speechless. Upon glancing up, he noticed Jack Sparrow listening to their conversation. With hair. The hair on my back, Jack Sparrow replied, his expression darkening, and his tone turning unfriendly, prompting both men to silence themselves. Anchor up. Aye, Captain. Young Turner, accompany me ashore. Gibbs, ensure Jace does not come ashore to seek me, Jack Sparrow instructed. Gibbs seemed to grasp the implication. I shall not allow Miss Jace to go, but Captain, what if the worst were to occur? We shall act according to the code, returning Jace to Tortuga. Jack Sparrow cast a glance at the captain's quarters before leaping onto the small boat. Yes, according to the code. After completing his tasks, Jess sat on the bed in deep contemplation. The names of Jack, the Black Pearl, Will, Barbossa, and that Elizabeth intertwined in his mind like a tangled web, inseparable. Will was determined to rescue Elizabeth, while Jack intended to barter with Will and Barbossa. What was the reason behind Elizabeth's abduction by Barbossa? Will was no fool, and Jack's actions often provided him with insights. Jess decided to breathe in the sea air to clear his mind. He tugged at the doorknob twice, only to discover that the door was locked. Hey, what is going on? Jack, Gibbs, is anyone here? Just as Jess was preparing to force the door open, Gibbs spoke up. Jack instructed me to keep an eye on you, Jess. What? Jess was bewildered, utterly shocked. What are you staring at me for? He realized suddenly that he and Will had left. When did that happen? Just a moment ago. Jack Sparrow, are you so eager to court death? Jess picked up a bottle of rum and positioned himself in the corner of the room. Gibbs, sensing the prolonged silence from the room, felt a sense of foreboding. Upon opening the door, he found the room empty. Just as he turned to leave, a sharp pain struck his head, and he stared wide-eyed at the grinning Jess before collapsing to the floor. Don't blame me, Gibbs. This is for the greater good. Jess locked the door once more, tossing the key into the sea. Chapter 29. As darkness descended, Jace procured a small boat and began to rhythmically paddle. Will sat aboard, catching sight of nearby skeletal remains, and recollected the fragmented words he had heard. What rules must one adhere to when the worst comes to pass? The pirate code dictates that we abandon those who stray from the group. Are there no heroes among pirates? When one sees through the guise of pirates, one is swiftly on the path to becoming one. Jack Sparrow enumerated the reasons Will was now a pirate. He pried open prison doors to liberate captives, brazenly seized a vessel from the royal fleet, and sailed away with a band of pirates to Tortuga. Noticing Will's silence, he followed his gaze to the gold glimmering in the water and added, "You are utterly captivated by the treasure." "That is a fallacy. I am not entranced by the riches," Will retorted as he assisted Jack Sparrow in disembarking. "Treasure encompasses more than mere currency," Jack Sparrow hinted, casting a knowing glance toward Elizabeth, who was surrounded by pirates. "Gentlemen, the day of our liberation has finally arrived. Our freedom lies just ahead. Our suffering is nearing its end. We have endured trials and tribulations, and every soul present has repeatedly demonstrated their courage, countless times. We have suffered enough punishment, far exceeding the crimes we have committed. Those transgressions lie before us." Barbossa kicked open a chest brimming with gold coins. The cursed treasure of Corton. Every scattered coin has been retrieved, save for one. Barbossa pointed to the coin resting upon Elizabeth's chest. Jack Sparrow abruptly pulled him back and stood up. "Not yet. We must await the opportune moment." "When will that be?" "When it serves your interests." Will trailed behind Jack Sparrow, his tone rife with distrust. "May I pose a question?" Jack turned his head. "Have I ever given you a reason to deem me untrustworthy?" Without receiving a response, Jack interpreted Will's silence as acquiescence. "Please assist me. I understand this is difficult for you, but I implore you to remain here and refrain from any foolish actions. He may be a rogue, but surely not to such a degree." Jess had just disembarked when she spotted Jack Sparrow sprawled on the ground, and Will had vanished. "Wow, what a surprise." She approached and shook Jack awake. "Jess, what brings you here?" "Damn it, Gibbs. Shoo. Keep your voice down. Mister." Gibbs is likely still lying on the cold floor, regretting that he didn't keep a better watch over me while fulfilling the captain's orders, Jess chuckled. "Where's Will?" "Clearly, he is not here. He fled with Elizabeth, and who knows why he believed that vessel could outpace the Black Pearl. We must rise. I suspect Will has already seized my oars." Jack Sparrow's mind was in a state of turmoil, especially after Will's recent blow, which was no trifling matter. "All the oars?" "I am uncertain. Perhaps there are more, yet it is evident that we have no chance of escape." Jess, alongside Jack Sparrow, was preparing to flee when, unexpectedly, two figures approached them. "What unfortunate news." Jack Sparrow sighed in resignation. You should be dead," Pintel exclaimed, his face a portrait of disbelief. "Am I not dead?" Jack Sparrow retorted as he pulled Jess backward, only to discover more pirates behind them. They were surrounded. "Palulai, Parlily, Parship, Parsley." Jess rubbed his temples, perplexed by this unreliable captain. "Parley. Indeed, dear friend, Parley," Jack Sparrow exclaimed, pointing at Jess. The crowd stirred at the utterance of that word. Jess tugged at Jack Sparrow's sleeve, glancing around. "You intend to." Before Jack Sparrow could respond, Rigetti aimed his gun at him. "Blast it. Who on earth invented this Parley nonsense?" Jack Sparrow declared. "It must have been the French." Barbossa gazed at the bustling crowd encircling two individuals, initially believing he had captured Will and Elizabeth, only to discover upon closer inspection that it was Jace and Jack Sparrow. His pupils dilated in surprise for a fleeting moment before he regained his composure. "How did you two escape that forsaken island?" Jace, noticing the regret in Barbossa's eyes, stifled the urge to strike him in retaliation. "When you cast us onto that island, you overlooked a vital detail, my friend. I am Captain Jack Sparrow." Barbossa's curiosity waned, and he replied, "Ah, very well. I shall not commit the same error again, gentlemen." Do you recall Captain Jack Sparrow and young Jace? Aye. Let us eliminate them. Chapter 30. The blood of that girl is of no use, is it? At this moment, a marked change washed over Barbassa's expression as he turned to face the two men. He raised his hand to his crew, signaling, "Hold your fire." Jace observed as Barbassa approached, narrowing his eyes to scrutinize Jack Sparrow's face. "Do you know the person we are seeking?" "Of course, Barbassa. Take them to the captain's quarters." "Gentlemen." Barbassa regarded the two with a knowing gaze. Jack Sparrow's smile vanished in an instant after Barbassa turned away. He gently patted the hand of Jess, which was gripping his clothing tightly. "Don't worry, Jack, Jess attempted to articulate her thoughts, but swallowed her words instead. Jack Sparrow embraced Jess's head, patting her back reassuringly. "Don't worry, dear." Jess was indeed filled with trepidation, ever since witnessing those two skeletons in the dungeon, who could no longer be considered human. Her confidence in Jack Sparrow's desire to reclaim the Black Pearl had waned. The sight of Barbassa reignited that sense of dread within her. The despair she felt on the deserted island surged forth, and lowering her head, Jess murmured, "I will learn not to be afraid." "Are you planning to tell me that person's name, and then leave me on the shore, watching as you sail away with my ship?" Barbassa found the negotiation utterly ludicrous, and he couldn't help but laugh, a boisterous and derisive sound. Jess searched through the apple crate for a sweet fruit. A night spent rowing combined with the strain on her spirit had left her weary, rendering her indifferent to the gentlemen's discussions. After all, with Jack Sparrow still present, she felt at least a semblance of security. Jack Sparrow glanced at the carefree Jess and replied to Barbassa, "No, my intention is to toss you ashore first, reveal nothing. And only when I am sailing away with my ship will I call out that name to you. Savvy? However, if I were to stand upon the sandy shore and hear your cries, I might not discern the name of the person I seek." Barbassa is a man of suspicion. And moreover, Jack Sparrow is exceedingly clever. Between us, Jack Sparrow seized an apple from Jess and took a triumphant bite. Only Jess and I have not participated in the rebellion, thus our words carry weight. Nevertheless, I suppose I ought to express my gratitude, were it not for your betrayal. Casting us upon this desolate isle, Jess and I would likely endure the same dreadful curse as you. What a splendid world it is it not? Jess glared at the apple in Jack Sparrow's hand, and under his innocent gaze, begrudgingly reached for another. A black sailor entered to report, "Captain, we have caught up with the Indomitable." This is hardly good news, yet it was anticipated. Jess followed closely behind Jack Sparrow, exhibiting an unusual leisure, a stark contrast to the previously tense demeanor he had displayed. "I have an idea, Barbassa. How about we temporarily raise a flag of truce? I could board the Indomitable and negotiate for the return of your gold coins. What do you think?" Jack Sparrow interjected, positioning himself in front of Barbassa's telescope. "What nonsense are you uttering, Jack Sparrow?" Jess pondered the rationale behind his words. Was he merely stalling for time? Or did he truly desire to escape back to the Indomitable and vanish? However, the latter was an impossibility, for the Black Pearl still remained here. "Jack, you should now comprehend that it is precisely this weakness that has cost you the Black Pearl." Barbassa's words struck a chord with Jack, for it is much easier to seek out the deceased after they have passed. Lock them in the brig. Chapter 31. Jess glanced at the imposing figure of the African-American man behind her, attempting to strike a friendly rapport. "I know you. Your name is Lanash, isn't it? Hey, can we take it easy? For the sake of your brother's amicable relationship with me." "I have no brother. I advise you against harboring any misguided thoughts." "You are as glib as Jack Sparrow," the man retorted, clearly unimpressed by her overtures. He seized Jess's arm and tossed the apple from her hand. "Oh." Jess was flung into the cell, landing heavily on the ground. She cast a plaintive glance at Jack Sparrow. "Could you not lend me a hand? I fear you may slap me, just as you did before." Jack Sparrow explained as he helped Jess to her feet. "Why does the Black Pearl still leak?" "It seems they have not taken proper care of her," Jess muttered, somewhat vexed, as she pulled up her pant legs, though it served little practical purpose. Jack Sparrow remained silent, peering through the opening at the world beyond. "Do you think they can evade capture?" Jess mused aloud, answering her own question. "I doubt it. Barbassa's nautical expertise far surpasses that of those few. Elizabeth is quite clever, yet she does not contemplate escape routes thoroughly, and Maria is even more challenging. My dear, you are simply delightful. So, who could lead the Interceptor to victory? No one stands a chance, but perhaps a miracle might occur in your presence." Jack Sparrow must concede that Jack's cunning and experience are formidable. Alas, Barbassa would not foolishly allow you to escape. I had no intention of departing, my dear. As you're still here. Jack Sparrow caresses the black pearl. Oh, Jack, does this imply that the black pearl holds more significance than I do? Upon hearing his tone, Jess immediately realizes that his words are not directed at her, yet she is already accustomed to her captain's obsession with the black pearl. Are you jealous of the black pearl? No. Hard to port. Retract the starboard oars. Jess sensed impending trouble at his words, and the next moment, the vessel jolted, causing her to tumble into Jack Sparrow's embrace. My dear, are you offering a warm welcome? Jack Sparrow clutched the bars of the cell, leaning ever closer to Jess. She forcefully pushed him away, her back colliding with the bars. Ouch! Jack Sparrow, you were the one who pushed me away, he innocently replied. Jess cautiously approached the opening, spotting the approaching interceptor. Have they lost their minds, or are they simply foolish? Are they declaring war? Jack Sparrow, seemingly struck by a thought, suddenly yanked Jess aside, causing the hole to widen slightly. With a pained cry, he exclaimed, "Do not turn my ship into a sieve. Shouldn't we be fleeing for our lives, Captain?" Jess felt overwhelmed. How many madmen had she encountered? Jack Sparrow seized a nearby flask and hurled it against the shattered prison door. Upon witnessing the chaotic battleground aboard the ship, Jess furrowed his brow and grasped Jack Sparrow, urging him to exit the cell. This was a scene of inevitable defeat. My dear, do not be so pessimistic, Jack Sparrow said, taking hold of a rope tossed by a crew member. He embraced Jess and declared, "We must seek the gold." Gold. Jess contemplated the word, realizing its implications. Cursed gold? Indeed. Cursed, Jack confirmed. Jess spotted Elizabeth entangled with pirates. The sunlight reflected dazzlingly off the gold coins hanging around her neck. She dashed forward, kicking a pirate overboard. However, the barrage of gunfire from the Black Pearl was relentless, forcing Jess to pull Elizabeth down beside him. Where's the gold? Elizabeth attempted to push past Jess, only to be seized by Jack Sparrow. He noticed the bandages on her hand. Wow, where's dear Will? Chapter 32. Elizabeth, as if struck by a realization, sprinted toward the distance. Jack Sparrow observed the gold in Barbassa's monkey-esque grasp and pursued it, momentarily uncertain of whom to follow. Jess hesitated but ultimately ran towards Jack Sparrow. Barbassa, clutching the gold, looked down upon Jack Sparrow with a smirk and remarked, "We are all quite grateful to you, Jack. You are too kind." Jack Sparrow replied, forcing a smile. "It is not about you, but my monkey, named Jack." Barbassa swept his gaze over Jess and Jack Sparrow, addressing the crew, "Gentlemen, our hopes have returned." Jess pursed his lips, sensing the predicament. Several black men once again bound them, and this time, there was no resistance, as if the outcome had already been decided. "If you still desire the rights of Paris, I shall execute you on the spot." Rigetti brandished his firearm at the sailors. Elizabeth broke free from her bindings, leaving Jess in utter disbelief. In the distance, the interceptor was detonated, and Jess recalled Elizabeth's earlier actions, tracing a cross over his heart. "Will, may God bless you in heaven." "Will," Elizabeth cried out in despair, "you must stop it." With Will's return now impossible, the curse upon Barbassa and his crew remained unbroken. Was this a case of cleverness backfiring? Elizabeth, consumed by her anger, extended her sharp claws in an attempt to harm Barbassa. Barbassa's patience had worn thin. "Welcome back, Mississippi. Last time, you shamelessly exploited our hospitality, and now, you shall receive your due. It is only fair." Subsequently, Elizabeth was thrust towards the band of pirates by Barbassa. Jess raised an eyebrow and recoiled slightly, envisioning the fate that awaited the noble lady. She felt a profound sympathy for the consequences of the lady's desperate gamble, yet such compassion could remain unvoiced. To argue on her behalf would be tantamount to courting death. "Barbassa," Will's voice. Jess's pupils dilated as she glanced towards the man who was presumed deceased. Will brandished a pistol towards Barbassa, demanding, "Let her go." "Child, what do you intend to do?" Barbassa scoffed, impervious to the threat posed by Will's firearm. Thanks to his newfound invulnerability, Jess cast a wary glance at Jack Sparrow, whose eyes were darting with mischief. It seemed that Will's plan was on the verge of collapse. This gentleman was prepared to do anything for Elizabeth. "Let her go?" Will reiterated. "You possess but a single bullet, while we are all beings beyond death." Barbassa sneered at Will. Will glanced at Jack Sparrow, who clasped his hands in a gesture of entreaty, urging, "Do not act foolishly." "You will not." Will pressed the gun against his own throat, declaring, "I shall." "Ah, who are you?" Jack Sparrow surged forward, incessantly exclaiming, "A nameless wretch. Merely a minor character." A distant cousin of my aunt's nephew, though he sings delightfully, a delicate fellow. The more Jack Sparrow spoke, the more Barbassa's suspicion regarding Will's identity intensified. My name is Will Turner. My father is Bill Turner. His blood courses through my veins. Pintel pointed at Will, his expression one of feigned terror, exclaiming, "He is Bill's son, the one who is always pestering us. Do as I say, or I shall pull the trigger and disappear into the vast ocean." Chapter 33. Speak your terms, Mr. Turner. Will immediately responded, "Release Elizabeth." "Very well, we understand. Are there any other conditions?" Jack Sparrow gestured toward himself. "And the crew? Do not harm them." Jack Sparrow rolled his eyes, hoping for further elaboration, though Will seemed oblivious to the unspoken cues. "Agreed." Barbassa's grin reminded Jack of the earlier forced leap from the ship, sending a shiver down his spine. Observing the direction in which the Black Pearl sailed only solidified Jack's suspicions regarding Barbassa's intentions. Elizabeth takes precedence. The pirates brandished their swords, coercing Elizabeth to leap into the sea, incessantly shouting, "Step forward! Step forward!" Will was restrained as he unloaded his firearm. A black crew member pressing against his neck and arms, rendering him immobile, leaving him to curse vehemently. "Barbassa, you deceitful wretch. You promised to let her go. Do not tarnish my reputation, boy. I agreed to release her, but you did not specify the time or place. This is precisely why she harbors disdain for Pear. These individuals possess hearts so tainted that not a single word can escape unscathed from their scrutiny." Barbossa regarded Elizabeth with a gaze tinged with regret. "The loss of such a captivating beauty is indeed lamentable, is it not? Before you depart, could you kindly return my garments?" Captain Jack Sparrow turned to Jace, inquiring if he had any other alternatives. Jace shook his head, feeling the absurdity of the situation. "What just is this? You are at a loss. How could I possibly have a solution?" Then it was Jack Sparrow's turn. Barbossa warmly embraced him, exclaiming, Jack, have you not yet realized? This is the very island we abandoned you. Oh no, you all, upon." Jack Sparrow cast a glance, then turned back, affirming, "Indeed. Perhaps you might conjure yet another miraculous escape from death, but I remain highly skeptical. Leap forth." Jack Sparrow managed a feeble smile as he recalled. "Last time you left Jace and me a single-shot pistol. Good heavens. Yes, where is Jack's gun? Bring it forth." Barbossa, wielding the firearm, continued. "This time you may still choose to act as a gentleman, relinquishing the gun to the lady. However, this time there are two. I am most curious, Jack, whom will you ultimately select?" Jace couldn't help but roll his eyes behind Barbossa, only to be startled back a step by Barbossa's sudden turn. "Jesse." Barbossa seems to have suddenly recalled another person. "Why do you still linger by the side of Jack Sparrow?" "I have nowhere else to go, Captain Barbossa," Jesse replied, a smile gracing her lips. Barbossa's hand brushed against Jesse's face. "Oh, poor little Jesse, would you care to accompany me? Following that unfortunate Jack must have been quite the ordeal for you. Join us, and once we unravel that cursed fate and seize the treasures, we shall reap bountiful rewards." "Undermining? You just mentioned that she must descend as well." "My dear Barbossa, I regret to inform you, given the recent incident with Will, it is difficult for me to believe that a cunning captain would allow a woman with even the slightest connection to Jack Sparrow to survive." "Excellent rhetoric. Very well, Jesse," Barbossa declared, lifting her onto the plank. "Jump, little Jesse, jump." Without hesitation, Jesse turned and leaped into the abyss. Barbossa's demeanor was perplexing. It felt as if he knew something, unsettling her deeply. Chapter 34. As Jesse sank into the depths of the sea, she beheld Jack Sparrow still submerged below, pausing momentarily before swimming towards him. Jack Sparrow shook the rope in his hands, and Jesse furrowed her brow, realizing her own hands were bound. Without a moment's hesitation, she opened her mouth and bit down on the knot, striving to loosen the bindings with her teeth. Feeling the friction of her teeth against his wrist, Jack struggled to free himself from the rope. Just as Jesse began to feel the sting of oxygen deprivation, he wrapped his arms around her waist and pressed his lips to hers. As Jace emerged from the water, her face was a deep shade of crimson, not solely due to the lack of oxygen, but also because of the small profits Jack Sparrow had pocketed during the oxygen supply. She lay on the shore, gasping for air, and as her breath steadied and her mind cleared, she wasted no time in delivering a swift kick that sent the standing Jack Sparrow tumbling to the ground. Jace glared at him, wiping her mouth with her drenched clothing. "Damn it." Realizing Jace's discontent, Jack Sparrow wisely chose to remain silent. However, a few minutes later, he glanced back at the receding silhouette of the Black Pearl, reflecting. This marks the second time I have witnessed someone sail away with my ship. It may not be the last, my captain. Jace lamented her lack of rum to drown her sorrows. Elizabeth, unfazed by Jack Sparrow's demeanor, urged him, and Jace, you were both exiled to this island before, weren't you? We can still escape using the methods you once employed. The noblewoman's insistence ignited Jace's fury. Could you kindly be quiet, Miss Noble? This is hardly the time for your tea parties. Do you think we can simply forget how you abandoned Jack? And now you're contemplating escape? Jace intended to voice more, but Jack Sparrow intervened, grasping her arm. She shrugged off his hand, rolling her eyes, thinking, did he truly believe she spoke solely for her own sake? Jace, you are akin to a powder keg right now, Jack Sparrow kindly cautioned. Jessie pursed her lips. Clearly unsettled, this was the second time. Exiled to this place once more. With Barbossa and alongside Jack again. Last time was sheer fortune. But what of this? No stroke of luck favors a person twice. Elizabeth, undoubtedly feeling guilty, set aside her pride and continued addressing Captain Jack Sparrow. You are indeed Captain Jack Sparrow. You managed to slip away right under the noses of 7 soldiers of the East India Company, plundering an entire port without a shot fired. Are you truly still the same notorious pirate I once knew? How did you escape last time? Jessie pushed aside the two and lifted a wooden plank. Handing a bottle of rum to Jack Sparrow, the best remedy for his current state, the only solace they shared, all too aware of the slim chances of returning. Last time, Jack Sparrow accepted the drink, gesturing towards the cellar. I was confined here for merely 3 days. Do you understand? Previously, the smugglers used this island as a secret depot, coming here to load their goods. Jessie and I posed as shipwrecked souls, promising them gold in exchange for passage. Jessie cast a glance around the storeroom, adding, from the state of these treasures, it seems that this place has remained untouched for quite some time. My dear Elizabeth, this might be attributed to your friend Norrington, or perhaps to Jack and me. Is that truly the extent of it? Elizabeth choked out. Is this the grand adventure that the illustrious Jack Sparrow speaks of? You and Jessie lazed on the beach for days, drinking rum. Not only that, but we also endured several days of life on a deserted island before discovering this wine cellar. Jess placed the rum into Elizabeth's embrace, a cruel smile gracing his lips as he remarked, welcome to the Caribbean. In Chapter 35, Jack Sparrow sat upon the beach, sipping rum leisurely, only to realize that Elizabeth had vanished. Jess took a seat beside him, prompting Jack Sparrow to inquire, where has she gone? I don't know, Jess replied, snatching the rum bottle from Jack Sparrow. But you've had quite enough. Why? What do you mean by quite enough? Jack Sparrow reached for the bottle once more. What a twist of fate to find ourselves here again. However, refrain from drinking any further. At least keep half your wits about you. I suggest you search for Elizabeth. Although we encountered no beasts last time, this is still a deserted island, and one can never tell what lurking horrors may await. Jess shrugged, gazing at Jack Sparrow with a sense of resignation. Very well, I hope that by the time I return, your mind will be clear. He walked toward a nearby cave, cradling a handful of wild fruits, tossing them one by one into his mouth. Uncertain of Elizabeth's whereabouts, Jess searched in vain for her, but after a fruitless round, he gathered the food he had found and prepared to retrace his steps. We are demons and black sheep, true villains in every sense. Let me drown my sorrows in intoxication. Huzzah! Rejoice for my piratical adventures. The joyful and optimistic melodies reached Jess's ears as she traversed the forest, catching sight of 2 figures entwined and dancing upon the beach. She raised an eyebrow, wondering if there was now yet another soul inebriated. After reclaiming the Black Pearl, Captain Jack Sparrow pulled Elizabeth close, declaring, I shall teach every crew member to sing it. We shall sing it wherever we go. Then you will become a renowned pirate across the Spanish mainland. Jack Sparrow, seemingly dissatisfied, countered, not just Spain, my dear, but the entirety of the ocean, the whole world. We shall go wherever we desire. That is the true essence of a ship. Do you comprehend? It is not merely a keel, a hull, a deck, or a few necessary sails. The meaning of a ship, the true essence of the Black Pearl, is freedom. Elizabeth nestled into Jack Sparrow's embrace, saying, Jack, it must have been terrifying to be stranded on that island. Oh, indeed, but last time I had Jess by my side. Alas, she is not here now. Jack Sparrow replied, but I still have a companion, do I not? Jess observed as Jack's hand reached for Elizabeth's shoulder. Realizing it was not the right moment for her to return, she retraced her steps to the cave, intending to rest there for the night, not wishing to witness any unspeakable scenes. Jessie? Jessie slowly opened her eyes. Jack. After speaking, she closed her eyes again and turned away. Jessie. Jack Sparrow nudged her. Jessie impatiently opened her eyes, questioning what could possibly be more important than slumber. My esteemed captain, have you devised a means for our escape? The rum has been entirely consumed by Elizabeth. Rum, consumed. Upon hearing those words, Jessie became alert. What did you say? The rum has been completely burned by Elizabeth. Is she attempting to lure the Navy with smoke? Perhaps. Upon hearing the response, Jessie reclined once more. Is that not a good thing? We have ample water, and with some fruits, we can sustain ourselves for a while. The rum is gone, and it cannot return. The primary concern lies with that group of Navy. We cannot escape, Captain. Before long, the thick black smoke indeed attracted the Navy, led precisely by Norrington, and thus the three were taken aboard the ship. Chapter 36. Jessie bit her lip, seemingly in turmoil, while Elizabeth fervently urged her father to rescue Will. We must save Will. No, you are safe now. We must immediately return to Port Royal, rather than entangle ourselves with pirates. We have pushed him towards his demise. The fate of the child evokes profound sorrow. He willingly succumbed to degradation, entangled in the sordid affairs of pirates. He did so to rescue me, to spare me from torment. Captain Jack Sparrow interjected. Permit me to audaciously offer a professional perspective. The Black Pearl has been left battered and bruised following that battle. It is at its most vulnerable. Contemplate this, my friend, the Black Pearl, the last pirate ship of the Caribbean. Will you truly let this opportunity slip away? As Jack spoke, he subtly gestured towards Elizabeth. Mr. Sparrow, my loyalty lies with duty, not self-interest, Jess retorted, striding towards Norrington. Brigadier, you will desire this opportunity. It signifies not only your future, but also that of your future bride. Norrington, consider it a dowry for my proposal. Elizabeth's father remarked with evident delight. Are you accepting the commander's proposal, Elizabeth? I am, she affirmed. Jess mused that Norrington must be feeling rather disheartened. Knowing that the woman he loved was marrying him for another man, it was almost laughable. A wedding. I adore weddings. Let us drink to our heart's content. Norrington cast a glance at him, and Jack Sparrow, understanding the unspoken cue, extended his hand. I know, restrain him, correct? Mr. Sparrow, you must go to the helmsman and assist them in navigating through the treacherous reefs. During your moments of leisure on this journey, it would be prudent to ponder the significance of the phrase, silence is golden. Do you comprehend my words? It could not be clearer. The two soldiers behind him escorted him away, but not before he subtly mouthed to Jess, come find me. Norrington signaled for the soldiers to escort Elizabeth to change her attire, while he himself led Jess to the captain's quarters. Jess Noanna, what brings you here? And why are you in the company of a pirate? For the first time, Norrington recognized Jess. Though she seemed to lack her former haughtiness and arrogance that once underscored her noble lineage. This perplexed Norrington. Jess reclined in a chair, her feet resting on the table. Her hands clasped nonchalantly before her, exuding an air of serenity, embroiled in a clandestine mission concerning the royal family. Brigadier Norrington, I trust that your rank does not permit you to inquire about the Admiral's affairs, does it? I am merely curious, Admiral Jess. It is difficult to fathom how your secretive endeavors might intertwine with those of pirates. Jess toyed with the chess pieces upon the table. That is my concern, Brigadier. I believe you ought to worry about your own affairs. Do you genuinely think that Jack Sparrow would benevolently alert you? Certainly not. Yet you still seize this opportunity to ascend, do you not? Brigadier, Jess coaxed Norrington back into his seat and whispered temptingly in his ear, I comprehend your situation, Brigadier. But are you truly not inclined to leave a contingent aboard the ship? It is essential to recognize that while pirates may be unscrupulous, their swordsmanship is not inferior to that of soldiers molded by wealth, is it? For the safety of your wife, I strongly advise you to consider this. Why do you remind me of such matters? A gesture of goodwill, sir. Similarly, you must ensure that my identity remains undisclosed. Very well, miss. Chapter 37. Jess contemplated a gamble, wagering on the extent of Captain Jack Sparrow's trust in her, as it was pivotal to her forthcoming plans. She instructed Norrington to command several soldiers to confine her within the captain's quarters, binding her with hemp rope and securing her to a chair. A performance must be thoroughly executed, must it not? Brigadier, I now find myself quite curious about the whereabouts of my crew member. Norrington glanced at her. For the safety of the ship, I have secured her in the captain's quarters under strict watch by several soldiers. From this, it appears you harbor alternative intentions for me. Brigadier Norrington. Captain Jack Sparrow seemed unfazed by Jess's location. Norrington, peering through his spyglass, observed the distant Black Pearl. I disfavor the terrain here. Anyone attempting to charge into the cave would be ambushed. Jack Sparrow approached him once more, remarking that had he been the ambusher, he wouldn't be so despondent. I shall venture forth to persuade Barbassa and his crew to come aboard the small vessel. You and your men can bombard them from the Dauntless. Is that agreeable? What do you stand to lose? I have little to fear. He paused, then continued, Now, I must confide in you. Those still aboard the Dauntless may be in peril, including the future commander's wife. Norrington hesitated for a moment before exiting the dungeon, dispatching someone to bring Elizabeth into the captain's quarters. I care not for the commander's orders. I must inform him of those pirates. They are cursed. They are immortal. Elizabeth was now deeply concerned that Norrington and his men might recklessly charge in, falling prey to Jack Sparrow's deception. Fear not, miss, he assured her. He has already been informed of a mermaid who leapt onto the deck and divulged everything to him. The lieutenant, dismissive of her words, locked the door behind Elizabeth as he ushered her inside. This is all Jack Sparrow's scheme. Elizabeth, realizing her attempts at persuasion were futile, turned and was startled by Jess, who was lying on the bed. Oh, it's you. Yes, surprised to find me here? Jess had managed to free himself from the ropes and tossed them beneath the bed, slowly stretching and disinterestedly observing Elizabeth's actions. She began to search for the blankets to fashion a rope. Elizabeth? A voice called from outside. I merely wish to convey that you have made a commendable decision today, and I am immensely proud of you. Yet, do you understand? Even a correct choice, if born from misguided intentions, can transform into an erroneous one. Jess spoke to Elizabeth, who was by the window, indicating he was indeed a decent father. Yes, but I do not wish to remain under his protection indefinitely. I possess my own choices. Will sacrificed himself to save me, I should not abandon him. A wise choice. I shall pray for you, miss, Jess replied, devoid of any inclination to move. Elizabeth looked at her quizzically. Are you not a member of Jack Sparrow's crew? Why not seek him out? Jack Sparrow will find me, and I shall seek him as well. It is simply not the right moment. Miss, you must depart. Soon you may find it impossible to do so, Jess urged. After a brief hesitation, Elizabeth leapt down. Outside, Governor Swan, receiving no response for some time, assumed Elizabeth was sulking and called again, Elizabeth? Are you there? Can you hear me? As he opened the door, he found only Jess sitting on the bed. Jess waved his hand at Governor Swan and said, Your daughter has left to find her true love, Mr. Will Turner. Chapter 38. What? Governor Swan furrowed his brow. Jess closed the door and returned to the bed, contemplating that the ship must now be teeming with skeletons. Governor Swan vehemently expressed his indignation, but the sound of gunfire erupted from above, sowing seeds of doubt in his mind. Unable to quell his curiosity, he contemplated opening the door to investigate. However, Jess seized the collar of his coat, pulling him back with urgency. I presume you would not wish to behold those repulsive skeletons, Mr. Swan. Please remain seated and composed. Trust in your esteemed son-in-law, the delightful Mr. Wiltner. They can lift the curse before succumbing to the Navy, Jess offered, presenting Governor Swan with an apple, to give it a taste. I find it rather pleasant. The governor sensed that the man before him possessed an unsettling knowledge of everything. What fate awaited Elizabeth? Of course. Just as Jess began to articulate his thoughts, skeletal hands emerged through the glass window, attempting to seize something. Governor Swan's face turned pale, struck by the horror unfolding before him. Jess, appearing somewhat pained, cast a few glances at the ghastly scene before seizing a candlestick from the table and striking the skeletal hand, dislodging it before tossing it into the cupboard. Rest assured, Governor Swan, your daughter is endowed with great abilities. She will not easily perish at the hands of those cursed souls. After an indeterminate wait, silence fell from the cupboard. Jess cautiously opened it, revealing a hand infested with maggots. He grimaced in disdain, then turned to Governor Swan and remarked, It appears the matter has been resolved. The governor, peering inside with curiosity, barely stifled his nausea. The moonlight no longer shielded the rebels. They would await their judgment in the confines of their cells. Elizabeth turned to gaze at Will, their eyes locked in a tender exchange, as if they had been separated for a millennium. The clinking of gold and silver jewelry adorning Jack Sparrow interrupted their intimate moment, causing a cacophony that shattered the atmosphere. Will could not help but cast a sidelong glance at Jack Sparrow before returning his attention to Elizabeth, his mind racing with thoughts of her engagement that Jack had mentioned. We should return to the Dauntless. Your fiancé must be anxious to know of your safety. Elizabeth's eyes widened as she looked at Will, and upon noticing his evasive gaze, tears brimmed in her eyes, prompting her to flee, leaving Will in a state of turmoil. Jack Sparrow, burdened by the weight of his treasures, approached Will with difficulty and remarked, If you were still waiting for an opportune moment, it was just now. Will seemed to come to a realization, turning and rushing outside. Jack Sparrow boarded the ship and addressed Elizabeth. If you could escort me to my vessel, I would be most grateful. I am truly sorry, Jack. Jack understood her meaning. They were adhering to the code, and he could expect no more. It was not long before Jess heard Jack's frustrated shout as she was escorted out of the captain's cabin by soldiers. Raising an eyebrow at the captain adorned in gold and silver before her. He was observing her as well, but his eyes reflected confusion and skepticism. Norrington immediately ordered that Jess and he be confined in a cell. Jack Sparrow was the first to speak to Jace, who was facing the wall. With a sardonic smile, Sparrow addressed Jace, saying, "Oh, Jack, you ought to include captain in your title." Jace the crewman. Jace, perplexed and uncertain, could only tentatively respond, "Sorry. I relinquished the opportunity to search for you with Elizabeth. I did not abandon the ship." Sparrow remained silent. "I apologize for not following Captain Sparrow's orders. It was a dereliction of duty on my part." Still, Sparrow said nothing. "I am truly sorry, but the captain is not without fault either." Upon hearing this, Sparrow could not contain himself. He turned around, eager to hear Jace's defense. "Captain, do not presume I am unaware that had it not been for Elizabeth and the others, you might have fled long ago with that pile of valuables." Sparrow's expression betrayed a hint of guilt, making it difficult to deny he had ever entertained such an idea. "After all, we are equally matched in our misdeeds." Ah, Jace mused. What was once mere speculation now seemed validated. Chapter 39. After listening to the sentencing of the prisoner, Jace idly glanced towards Will in the crowd and caught sight of a flying parrot, raising an eyebrow with a smirk. "This is not right. Commander Norrington must act within the law, and so must we," Governor Swan stated. Will approached Governor Swan with a heavy heart. "Mayor Swan, Commodore Norrington, Elizabeth. I must confess that from the very moment we met, I have been enamored with you." Jasper glanced at Will, noting Norrington's darkened expression, and softly inquired of Jack Sparrow. "What did you have Will say?" "I did not orchestrate that. It was solely his desire, my dear," Jack Sparrow replied, winking innocently. As the executioner bound Jack Sparrow and Jasper with ropes, Will pushed through the crowd in search of them. Norrington sensed the impending chaos. Elizabeth feigned a choking fit. Collapsing dramatically, "I can't breathe." Will unsheathed his sword, causing the crowd to part in alarm. At that moment, the mechanism released, and Will hurled his sword. Jack Sparrow desperately stamped on it, while Jasper had already freed himself from the cursed bindings. In a tense struggle with the executioner, Jasper brandished a concealed dagger to sever the ropes. Jack Sparrow fell to the ground, yelping in pain, as soldiers approached. Will shoved the executioner into the crowd, and the trio swept their ropes against the advancing soldiers. Yet, as they ran towards the city walls, they found themselves cornered, with no escape in sight. "I anticipated someone would attempt to rescue, though I never imagined it would be you," Governor Swan remarked. "Years ago, during our return from Port Royal, I saved your life. And this is how you repay me? By jeopardizing your promising future for him? He is but a pirate. Indeed, he is a good man." Will retorted. "If all my actions merely lead to the forfeiture of my own life, then so be it. My conscience assures me that this is the right course." "You have forgotten your stance, Turner." Norrington pressed his sword against Will's throat. "I have made my choice between you and Jack." Elizabeth, standing opposite, seemed resolute as she approached Will's side. "And I too." "Elizabeth, lower your weapons." Governor Swan could not bear the thought of his daughter suffering even the slightest harm. "For the love of God, put down your guns. Is this truly where your heart lies?" Abandoned by all, Norrington, Jess chuckled quietly behind Jack Sparrow. "Yes." A parrot flew over the walls as Jack Sparrow patted Jess on the shoulder. Jess, noticing his contemplative demeanor, seemed to grasp something profound. "Well, I cannot help but applaud this," Jack Sparrow addressed Governor Swan. "It appears we are all entangled in a delicate web of relationships, including thoughts, worldviews, and language." After speaking, he dashed back to Norrington. "I want you to know that I am absolutely behind you, my friend, you see?" Then he turned to Elizabeth, his gaze filled with regret. "Elizabeth, but between us, it seems none of this matters, my dear. I am truly sorry." Jack Sparrow led Jess to the edge of the city wall, remarking on Will's splendid hat, "Ladies and gentlemen, this day shall be etched in your memories forever." For on this day, before Jack could finish his proclamation, Jess abruptly pushed him into the sea, standing defiantly before the soldiers' weapons. "Jess?" Elizabeth exclaimed in shock, gazing at him. Chapter 40. Jess casually approached Norrington. "What is the matter?" "He has his black pearl waiting for him, and I have my affairs to attend to, Commodore. I have a new position to recommend to you. You are always welcome to visit me at my estate, Noanna. I trust you shall come. Yes, Commodore? Norrington furrowed his brow, grasping her collar. What precisely do you intend to do? Jess deftly pried Norrington's hand away, straightening her attire and adopting an air of arrogance. I intend to reclaim my identity. My mission is temporarily on hold, sir. Henceforth, please address me as Miss Jess. Jess reveled in the astonished expressions of those around her, finding great satisfaction in their disbelief. She glanced towards Jack Sparrow on the Black Pearl, a smile gracing her lips. It is now my time for leisure, dear Captain. Jack Sparrow grasped the rope thrown by the crew, hoisted up, and noticed Gibbs's grim expression. I presumed you would adhere to the code. We merely consider those articles more a suggestion, Jack replied, his gaze complex as he surveyed the city wall. She is astute and will not perish. Thus, she pushed me down, remaining above, leaving me in a state of bewilderment regarding her sudden intentions. Captain Jack Sparrow grasped Gibbs' outstretched hand. Perhaps she has her reasons, Jack. Cotton presented Captain Sparrow with a captain's hat. Maria draped a coat over Jack Sparrow, declaring, "The Black Pearl is now yours." Jack Sparrow caressed the ship's helm, calling out, "Everyone, take your positions. Prepare the sails. Now, let us set forth into the horizon. To the side of freedom." He opened the compass, observing the needle pointing towards the city walls, then irritably closed it once more. Jess's identity served as both a shield and a prison. The first command her father, Duke Bronze, issued upon her return to the kingdom was to meet Lord Beckett. Miss Jess. She was impeccably attired, and her gentlemanly demeanor could only elicit her admiration. Beckett pulled out a chair for her, and as she sat, she regarded him, saying, "Lord Beckett, I have heard of you. You are esteemed as an exceptional nobleman. May I inquire what brings you to seek me through my father?" "Miss Jess, you are too modest, given your status. Many noble sons would indeed hold you in high regard," Beckett replied, his fingers brushing the roses in the vase. "I too have long admired you and wished to witness your grace. Hence my visit to your father, Duke Bronze." As Jess continued to slice her steak, she inquired, "And what is Lord Beckett's assessment of me now?" "Miss Jess, you resemble a rose, adorned with thorns yet imbued with beauty and mystery. Once the thorns of a rose are removed, it ceases to be admired, and I believe the same holds true for you, Miss Jess." Nonchalantly, she picked up a glass of red wine and approached Lord Beckett. "It seems your understanding of me is rather superficial, my lord. In my eyes, the rose appears utterly ordinary. I would rather be perceived as the deadly hemlock in yours. I can bring you much joy, yet should you provoke my ire, I could make you weep with joy, only to lead you to your demise unbeknownst to you. What is your opinion on Jack Sparrow? Who is that? A pirate who revels in the tedium of freedom. Why must we mention a pirate at our table, Lord Beckett? We, too, serve the king, Miss Jess." "Everyone serves the king, Lord Beckett." Chapter 41. It appears we are at an impasse. "My lord, I have no time to meddle in your affairs, particularly those entrusted to you by the king." Jess glanced at her pocket watch. "I believe our conversation has been quite agreeable, and I shall take my leave now. It has been a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope for another opportunity to converse. However, given this lord's modus operandi, even if the task is completed, he may not have long to live." As Jess rose, she cast a meaningful glance at the young lord. Being too close to the king could elicit discontent from the elder nobility. Beckett gazed at the departing figure of Jess, gently caressing the ring upon his finger. Upon returning to Noanna Manor, Jess greeted Norrington, who was preoccupied with official duties. "Commander, are you finding comfort in this place?" "I am no longer a commander," Norrington replied with his characteristic gentlemanly demeanor. "I am simply a pawn under the Duke of Brown's." "Do not speak so sharply, Norrington," Jess replied, reclining on a sofa. "After all, it is not I who compelled you to pursue Captain Jack Sparrow. Do you not wish to meet Captain Sparrow?" Norrington inquired, his pen continuing its work without pause. Jess shook his head. "What purpose would that serve? What do you mean by your assignment being temporarily suspended?" "It is as it appears. The matter concerns the king, and it is not for a mere pawn to investigate. The king seeks knowledge of a pirate? Those in high places often possess numerous desires. I advise against your probing inquiries, lest you find your head in jeopardy. I cannot save you, Norrington." "So, you do have fears," Jess countered. "This is not fear. I merely encountered Beckett today." "Lord Beckett?" Norrington seemed to recall suddenly. "What business did you have with him?" "My dear father, whom I have only met a few times, personally dispatched a little dove to summon me for a meeting, a futile conversation that may have even vexed him." "You intimidated him?" Norrington asked, intrigued, glancing at Jess. Jess sighed helplessly. I wish it were otherwise, but his ambition is so overwhelming that it is quite intolerable. Such a partner is simply unacceptable. Are you not afraid of provoking Duke Blunt's ire? That old fellow is far more cunning than I. It was he who urged me to set sail to eliminate certain pirates and create a formidable reputation. The king has a keen interest in maritime affairs. After assigning me the task, the old man abandoned me on the island to fend for myself. Jess spoke of his father with evident exasperation. Norrington lowered his gaze. It seems your situation is not much better. Indeed, caught between a wolf and a tiger, I fear that should I falter, there may be no one to rescue me. As Jess spoke, he picked up the sword gifted by Duke Blunt. Norrington sensed Jess's troubled mood and refrained from further comment. Jess, feeling despondent, ascended the stairs. And upon opening the door, he was halted by a voice. What do you think of Lord Beckett? I am merely a puppet. There is no need to inquire about my opinion, Duke Blunt. The Duke attempted to embrace Jess, but he stepped aside, gazing at him with resignation. You are much like that Elizabeth, a stubborn child yearning for freedom, beloved by your father, yet perpetually defying him. Jess dismissed the Duke's hypocritical sentiments. Do you know Governor Swan? Yes, his daughter is soon to face misfortune. Elizabeth? What has happened to her? She conspired with the pirates, and her fiancé, Will Turner, was equally involved. They planned to wed, yet Beckett was preparing to sail there to apprehend them. Jess pursed her lips, although she harbored no fondness for Elizabeth. Her courage was commendable. The thought of Beckett disrupting their wedding was unbearable. Where is Beckett now? Jess inquired. Chapter 42. The Duke of Brown seemed to have anticipated the situation, producing a set of male attire and a sword for Jess. It's at the harbor. You still have time, my dear. Jess accepted the items, pushing the Duke out the door. You seem quite eager to see me go there. This is an opportunity for distinction, my dear. Jess silently donned the male attire, fastening the sword, and stepped outside. I fear I may disappoint you, for I am not venturing forth to eradicate pirates. Upon reaching the harbor, it appeared Beckett had been awaiting her arrival for quite some time. Jess regarded him, surprised that the lord retained his penchant for disrupting others' nuptials. Beckett detected the sting in her words and, with a casual demeanor, replied, For the honor of the king. No one shall transgress the law. They should have considered this when they allied with pirates. Now, aboard the ship, Mississippi Jess scoffed softly and turned aboard the vessel. Perhaps it was divine disapproval that prompted the heavens to unleash a torrential downpour that very day. The officer beside Beckett held an umbrella for Jess, who listened to the sound of raindrops striking the ground while gazing at Elizabeth, kneeling upon the lawn of her wedding. She dared not move, aware that her actions could not alter the impending outcome. A few soldiers brought Will over, and upon seeing him, Elizabeth rushed forward, clutching him tightly. Have your men step aside. This is outrageous, Governor Swan exclaimed. Beckett did not comply. Instead, he turned to greet him. Good day, Governor Weatherby Swan. Jess, pulled by Beckett, was compelled to turn as well. Cutler Beckett, Jess, Elizabeth and Governor Swan responded in astonishment. You should address me as my lord. It was only then that the soldiers allowed Governor Swan to approach. I care not for your title. You have no justification or authority to arrest this man. In fact, I do, Jess interjected. This Lord Beckett brings you the warrants for the arrest of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swan. On what grounds do you arrest me? Beckett appeared unfazed by Jess's outburst and added, There is also one for you, Miss Jess, which you seem to have forgotten, prepared for James Norrington. Has he arrived? He is currently working for my father, Lord Beckett. Jess felt compelled to interject. Beckett raised an eyebrow. It seems I shall need to schedule an appointment with your father. My father has been exceedingly occupied of late, and it appears he will be unable to keep his appointment. It would be prudent not to disturb him with trifles, Jess. Yet, will remain perplexed as to the reason for his arrest. Lord Beckett, I implore you to provide me with a reasonable explanation. Do not forget that royal port falls under the jurisdiction of the Governor-General of Britain. By what authority do you come here to apprehend individuals? Governor Swan, holding the arrest warrant, proclaimed, the charge is conspiracy to harbor a person who has been adjudicated guilty by the court and sentenced to death. And this charge, regrettably, also carries the death penalty. Beckett continued, Mr. Beckett, it seems I too may face execution, is that not so? With the soldiers of Admiral Norrington alongside Beckett's men, this is outrageous. Of course not, Jess. You are merely fulfilling your duty, as is required. You will remain eternally loyal to the crown, will you not? Jazz clenched his jaw, swallowing his indignation. Naturally, as the daughter of a duke, I shall forever pledge my allegiance to the king and the realm. Beckett then cast a glance at Elizabeth and the others, casually mentioning. Perhaps you recall a certain pirate by the name of Jack Sparrow. Captain, Elizabeth and Will exclaimed in unison. Chapter 43. Jazz felt a surge of anxiety at Beckett's words. How could she be entangled once more with Jack Sparrow? Captain Jack Sparrow. Captain Jack Sparrow, indeed. I knew you would remember him. They were led away by the soldiers to the dungeon. Jess turned her head and caught sight of Elizabeth and Will's pleading gazes. Yet she was unable to rescue them. The mere mention of Jack Sparrow by Beckett indicated that his mission was intertwined with Sparrow's affairs. Otherwise, how could the East India Company be familiar with a pirate? That notion was utterly absurd. Their relationship could only be one of enmity. Jess and Beckett returned to the captain's quarters, where the rain had ceased. It seems you have a keen interest in Jack Sparrow, Beckett remarked, attending to his duties. I presumed you would refrain from bringing such matters to my attention, Jess. Why not mention it? I thought you were the one genuinely intrigued by Jack Sparrow, Jess retorted, her eyes widening with indignation. I am the daughter of a duke. Even if I am not free, it is far preferable to being a filthy pirate. Sir, do not tarnish my dignity. Is that so? Beckett replied enigmatically. At that moment, several soldiers ushered Will into the room. Lord Beckett, the prisoner has been brought forth. One announced. Remove his shackles. Jess observed Will's puzzled expression. Truth be told, she shared his confusion regarding Beckett's intentions. Beckett poured a glass of wine and handed it to Will. The East India Company requires your services. Will did not answer. And in an effort to spare Beckett any embarrassment, Jess took the opportunity to seize the moment, as I happened to be parched. Beckett did not display anger. Rather, we hoped you could act as our intermediary and discuss a business venture with our mutual acquaintance, Captain Sparrow. We are merely acquaintances, hardly friends. It would be more prudent for you to have Miss Jess beside you to deceive him. Jess, for the time being, cannot depart. You are indeed the optimal choice, Mr. Turner. How do you know him? Jess was equally intrigued. We have had dealings in the past, leaving indelible marks upon one another. What? Is Captain Jack Sparrow gay? What kind of mark did he leave on you? Beckett did not reply, but judging by his expression, it was likely not a favorable one. It is because of you that Jack Sparrow attained his freedom. I wish for you to locate him and retrieve a treasure from him. Retrieve it? By threatening him with a sword? A transaction. Beckett opened a box and revealed a document within, letters of marque. Your crimes will be entirely pardoned. And Jack shall gain his freedom, becoming a privateer in the service of England. The terms are enticing, yet Jack Sparrow would undoubtedly refuse. For that would mean relinquishing his freedom. What could possibly compel Beckett to offer such significant terms? Jess was quite curious. I somewhat doubt Jack would equate servitude with freedom. Freedom, Beckett reiterated, evoking a sense of disdain within Jess for the very word. Individuals like Jack Sparrow are destined for extinction as the world shrinks. With the blank spaces on maps diminishing, Jack must either carve out his place in the new world or face inevitable demise. Unlike you, Mr. Turner. You and your fiancée are about to confront the gallows. Chapter 44. Do you desire both Jack and the Black Pearl? The Black Pearl? You seek his ship? A mere vessel? What I covet is far smaller, yet infinitely more valuable, an item that Sparrow invariably carries with him. Jess seemed to grasp what it was, Jack's compass. The one that points to one's innermost desires. A compass, you recognize this object. Retrieve that compass, or else this transaction is null and void. Jess observed the conflict etched on Will's face. She could not assist him and would have to wait until he departed to speak. Jess, you appear quite familiar with the term compass, Beckett suddenly interjected. Jess nodded. Is that so? Merely curious, how could an ordinary compass be worth so much? It is preferable that way. I have a lingering sense that you wish to impart something to me, yes. What is the purpose of that compass? What do you intend to do with it? Beckett shook his head. This is not your concern. Jess, you should retire. Seeing that her inquiries bore no fruit, Jess suggested to Beckett, I believe we could engage in a trade. What transaction is this? I have procured a compass for you. Will you assist me in eliminating the Duke of Bronze? Why? What? Beckett approached Jess, remarking on his apparent interest in Jack Sparrow, recalling the time spent in his company. Are you questioning my loyalty to the crown? Beckett shook his head. No, Jess, but if you wish to dispose of the Duke of Bronze, your bargaining chip is insufficient. A mere compass is far too trivial. You must understand how formidable the Duke of Bronze is. So what do you desire for this exchange? Davy Jones' heart. What? Jess seemed to perceive a jest in this. Davy Jones' heart. Do you think such an object is easily obtainable? I know, Jess. But you can accompany Will to seek out Jack Sparrow. He will lead you to that heart, and all you need do is deliver it to me, Beckett stated. Jess hesitated for a moment before consenting. What do you intend to do with it? To command the seas. Anything that cannot be controlled ought to be obliterated. Am I wrong, Jess? Beckett's words sent a chill through Jess. He was undoubtedly a madman. The following day, Jess brought Will to the cell to see Elizabeth. Beckett has not harmed you, has he? Elizabeth inquired. No, but he has sent me to procure Jack's compass. Jack's compass? What does Beckett want with that? It matters little. Jess and I intend to persuade Jack to come to Royal Port, which would allow us to withdraw our lawsuit. I have faith in you, but... Jess raised an eyebrow. Miss Elizabeth, were it not for my plea to Beckett, you would not have this opportunity to meet Will. Yet, you already have a history of betrayal, do you not, Miss Jess? Elizabeth's words were indeed laced with barbs. Jess scoffed softly. You are no different, Elizabeth. Elizabeth turned back to continue her conversation with Will. Where do you plan to search for him? We'll start at Turtle Island, and we won't cease until we find him. Then I shall return here to marry you. Formally? Elizabeth chuckled lightly. In a legitimate manner, if you still desire me. Were it not for these iron bars, I would already belong to you. Jess was momentarily taken aback, clearing his throat. Even as an engaged couple, they ought not to flaunt it before her. I will await you. Keep your eyes on the horizon. With that, Will departed, seemingly resolute. Chapter 45. Amidst the incessant twists and turns of their voyage. The two finally located a likely spot where Jack Sparrow might appear, a small island not far to the south of the strait. The black captain arranged for them to be brought ashore. Midway, one of the crew suddenly halted. Is there a problem? There lies the beach, Jess remarked. The crew member's hurried words left Jess and Will somewhat perplexed. Upon hearing the crew member's insistence to refrain from rowing further, the two exchanged glances and decided to plunge into the sea to swim ashore. As Jess reached the land, she gazed at the vessel before her, gently caressing its hull. It was the Black Pearl. How could it be anchored here? We should search for them, Jess, Will urged, his anxiety heightened due to Elizabeth's predicament. Jess shook her head, replying, You go ahead, I shall follow shortly. The presence of an unknown island, devoid of any crew members, compelled her to remain vigilant. At that moment, a parrot flew by, and Will's eyes brightened at the familiar sight. Don't eat me, the parrot exclaimed. Jess grew increasingly alert, grasping Will's arm. There may be man-eating creatures inside. It's best not to act recklessly. Will, however, disregarded Jess's caution, brandishing his sword. Fear not. I can protect myself, he declared, stepping into the thicket. Jess furrowed her brow, wielding her own sword, while gently coaxing the parrot to perch on her shoulder, following closely behind Will. Will noticed Gibbs's flask dangling from a branch. He climbed the rope to retrieve it, but in the next instant, a wild man, adorned in camouflage paint, let out a deafening roar. Will fell into a trap, hanging upside down, as a horde of wild men brandished wooden spears approached. One of the wild men blew a peculiar whistle, and Will instantly succumbed to unconsciousness. As Jess observed the scene, she could only wait for the wild men to carry Will away while she remained hidden. They transported Will to the main tribe, and Jess caught sight of the leader seated at the center, his eyes wide with astonishment. Jack Sparrow. He wore a necklace adorned with a thumb and had painted eyes on his face. It seemed he had spotted her before turning his gaze back to Will. Jack Sparrow, how delightful it is to see you. It appeared that Will was still oblivious to the situation, causing Jess's lips to twitch in irritation. Jack Sparrow poked Will's body with his finger. Jack, it's me, Will Turner. But Jack Sparrow ignored him, conversing in strange words with one of the wild men. They seemed to regard Jack Sparrow as a deity. Let them put me down. Jack Sparrow gestured with his fingers, signaling the cannibals to hush. Jack, I only need that compass. Elizabeth is in danger. We were captured because we tried to help you, and she will be hanged. Jack Sparrow appeared to have a realization and turned to say something to the cannibals, which made them cheer. Jess could clearly see the shape of his lips as he turned to her, mouthing, Save me. Will was bound and taken away, and Jess cried out, Jack, what did you say to them? No. What about Elizabeth? Jack. As dusk descended, Jess stealthily infiltrated the wildlings' encampment. Sensing a presence behind her, she swiftly brandished her dagger and lunged. However, the figure evaded her attack with remarkable agility. Only when the individual drew near did Jess recognize who it was. She lowered her dagger. It was none other than Jack Sparrow. This time, she did not resist, for her longing for him was overwhelming. Are you all right? No. They regard me as a possessed deity. Are you, like Will, seeking the compass? Jess's eyes betrayed a flicker of guilt as she shook her head. Her desires were of a loftier nature. Chapter 46. No, Jack, I have come to find you. Oh, my dear, you have truly moved me. As Jack Sparrow spoke, His hand ventured toward areas it ought not to touch. Jess promptly grasped his hand, exclaiming, "Hey!" Jack Sparrow sheepishly withdrew. Yet Jess caught a glimpse of the dark blemishes on his skin. She seized his hand, furrowing her brow. "What is this? Don't tell me it's a mere birthmark or a tattoo." "Nothing of consequence. We should first contemplate our escape," Jack Sparrow replied, somewhat uneasily retracting his hand. Jess tucked this matter away in her mind and turned to inquire, "What of Gibbs and the others? They've been bound at the cliff, serving as provisions. Should I go rescue them?" No, you must save me tomorrow. The cannibals here perceive me as a deity trapped in a vessel. Tomorrow marks the moment of my liberation. They intend to consume your vessel to free your soul. It is roughly as follows. Let us wait until tomorrow to assess the situation. In the morning, the cannibals began to beat their drums, and Jess gazed at the peculiar visage of Jack Sparrow, adorned with strange paint, feeling a sense of unease within her heart. What if she could not rescue him? When the drumming ceased, it marked the moment when these cannibals intended to release the so-called spirit of their deity. Clearly, Jack Sparrow had contemplated this predicament as well. He beckoned the guards to gather wood, to stoke the fire brighter, while he sought an escape route. In the blink of an eye, he vanished from Jess's sight. She smacked her forehead, realizing the cliffs surrounding them and her unfamiliarity with the terrain rendered escape nearly impossible. Indeed, within a minute, the cannibals returned, dragging Jack Sparrow bound to a stick. Jess observed him, suppressing a smile. Was he now akin to a roasted sparrow? Jack Sparrow shot a glare towards Jess, mouthing the familiar plea, "Save me." At this juncture, Jess could only pin her hopes on Will to create a significant distraction. Suddenly, a cannibal rushed over to convey news. The igniting priest had discarded his torch and departed. No, Jack Sparrow exclaimed, staring at the torch igniting the pile of grass beneath him. Jess. Jess hurried over, using her knife to sever the accursed ropes. "It seems Will and the others have fled. Where shall we go?" "Back to the Black Pearl." Jack Sparrow grasped Jess's hand firmly. Jace led his way through a deserted path towards the Black Pearl. Yet the cannibals were more familiar with the territory and soon caught up. "Funk. Jack Sparrow, you owe me a life." No, sweetheart, you volunteered to save me." As Jack Sparrow fled, he did not forget to haggle. The two swiftly climbed aboard the ship, and Jack Sparrow, with a hint of bravado, proclaimed to the cannibals, "You should remember this day." However, the waves interrupted his words, and a disheartened Jack Sparrow continued, "You nearly caught Captain Jack Sparrow." Once aboard, Pintel and Rigetti eagerly draped a coat over the captain. Gibbs suggested, "We should hasten away from this island and head into the open sea." "I concur with the first and the second, but we cannot stray too far from the shallows," Jack Sparrow replied dismissively. This was not typical of Jack Sparrow. Why would he make such a request? Jace looked at Jack Sparrow with suspicion. "This seems rather contradictory, Captain. I have considerable faith in your reconciliation-style navigation. Where has that monkey gone? I wish to find it for target practice." Upon hearing Jack Sparrow's words, the monkey, named Jack by Barbassa, dropped a pearl and scampered away. As for casual topics, "I plan to embark on a new venture in tomb raiding. I wonder if I can carry it through, but for now, I shall merely write freely. New book, Tomb Raiding, Selling Sin. Striving for 2 updates daily." Let us pause for a moment. In chapter 47, Will approaches, exclaiming, "Jack, Elizabeth is in peril." Jack Sparrow, reluctant to engage in such discussions, retorts, "Have you considered confining her? She is imprisoned for your sake and is on the brink of execution. At times, one must take responsibility for their misdeeds." Will brandishes a crew member's sword against Jack Sparrow's throat, prompting Gibbs to act with urgency. Drawing his pistol and aiming it at Will. "Will, lower your weapon. I require his compass. Spare me your notions of reconciliation." Hey. Jack Sparrow senses the palpable tension between the two, realizing that it is all due to him. "Stand down." Gibbs, lips pressed together, lowers his gun. And Will sheaths his sword. Gibbs, "Aye, Captain. We must navigate upstream." "Is your need merely a whimsical desire of the moment?" Gibbs inquires tentatively. "No, I mean a definitive necessity," Jack Sparrow asserts resolutely. Will glares at Gibbs and continues addressing Jack Sparrow. "What we require now is an immediate return to Port Royal." Gibbs finds amusement in Will's naive ambition. Though she harbors her own intentions, she is determined not to reveal them, at least not at this moment. For she needs to ascertain one crucial matter. "William, I can offer you the compass, while Jack Sparrow reveals a map. If you assist me in locating this, it could prove invaluable." Jess cast a curious glance, questioning the significance of the key's design. What does Jack intend to do with it? Open a treasure chest? You wish for my assistance in this endeavor? No, it is you who seek this, for discovering it may lead you to a means of rescuing your beloved, savvy? Jess harbored doubts about Jack Sparrow's intentions towards Will, yet she possessed no evidence. Could this object truly save Elizabeth? How well do you comprehend Davy Jones? Not much. Uncertain. Yes, this object can indeed save Elizabeth. It became clear to her that he was indeed deceiving Will, Jess thought. Jack Sparrow pulled Jess into the captain's quarters, pinning her against the table. Jess, he addressed her. The captain. Jess gazed into Jack Sparrow's eyes. His fingers grazed her lips. Will seeks to rescue Elizabeth. What about you? I am, of course, here to return to our ship. Captain, Jess replied with a smile. Jack Sparrow's hand brushed against her cheek as he leaned closer to her ear. It is best that way, crew member. My loyalty shall forever belong to you, Captain. Jess whispered. Where did you acquire your attire? Beckett provided it. And the sword and gun. He treats you so well. My father is a distinguished nobleman. And he is clearly someone who cannot be offended, Captain. Jess replied candidly. Jack Sparrow gazed at Jess with a hint of surprise. Really? You are of noble birth? I would never have guessed. Jess playfully wrapped his arms around Jack Sparrow's neck. Are you feeling jealous, Captain? After just 2 months apart, you have become so affectionate? A lady is far removed from your sphere. Jack Sparrow was reluctant to dismiss this invitation, but he needed to resolve his current predicament first. Jess, undeterred, remarked. I never expected the captain to exercise such restraint. Jess's fingers traced from Jack Sparrow's Adam's apple down to his chest. The flotation was all too evident. Just as Jack Sparrow intended to step back, he found his right hand captured. Jess noticed the dark mark on his hand. Wow, what is this? Chapter 48. He truly has been cursed by that octopus-headed creature. What did he exchange for his freedom? A form of adornment. Jack Sparrow awkwardly pulled his hand away from Jess. Is that so? Jess feigned ignorance, attempting to wipe it away. Are you certain this is merely decoration? Jess gazed at him with concern. You just mentioned Davy Jones. Was it he who cast this curse upon you, Captain? Maybe. Jack Sparrow looked at Jess with an air of discomfort. He always sensed something peculiar about Jess, yet he could not pinpoint the exact nature of the strangeness. The destination we are heading to is precisely to resolve this matter. I am confident that the captain will manage it. Jess gazed at Jack Sparrow with admiration. However, the oddity intensified. Jess undoubtedly harbored some issue, as Jack Sparrow regarded him with unease. A few of them glided into the waters in a small boat, enveloped in silence, save for the calls of the birds. Will observed Jack Sparrow with a wary expression, finding it somewhat peculiar. Why was Jack so afraid of the sea? Well, there exists a legend that a beast, a servant of Davy Jones, possesses enormous tentacles capable of dragging your face away in an instant, subsequently pulling the entire ship into the abyss of the ocean. The Norwegian sea monster. Gibbs shuddered momentarily, pausing, even its breath. Imagine, in your final moments, the deafening roar you would hear, the putrid stench of its decaying breath filling your nostrils. If you were to believe in this legend, could the key offer him liberation? That was precisely what Jack yearned to discover, even to the extent of consulting her. Jess finally caught wind of a topic that piqued his interest. Sensing Gibbs' reluctance to delve into this subject, Jess sealed his lips and resumed his rest. Upon reaching a small cottage, Jack Sparrow halted the group, reassuringly declaring, Do not worry. My brothers, Tia and I shall return. We are inseparable, as we once were. I will keep a watchful eye ahead. I fear her approach from the front. Jace's curiosity deepens regarding this woman who instills fear in Jack Sparrow. Watch the ship, a remark that reaches Jace's ears. He raises an eyebrow, nodding in agreement, and sits beside Cotton, harboring a sense of reverence for the unknown peril. Jack Sparrow crouches as he enters. A woman with dreadlocks, seemingly engrossed in her own study, diverts her attention to him and grins. Jack Sparrow. Tia Dalma. Jack Sparrow responds with an apparent familiarity. I always knew the winds would eventually bring you back. Tia Dalma approaches, noticing Will by the door, and adds, You have a premonition of your fate, William Turner. Do you know me? You wish to know me. Tia Dalma leans closer to Will. Jack Sparrow promptly interjects. We come with a request. We shall not depart until our purpose is fulfilled. I thought I already knew you. It appears to be less than I anticipated. Come. Tia Dalma seems intrigued by Will, her hand gliding across his chin. How may I serve you? You are aware that I require compensation. I have brought a reward. Jack Sparrow unveils the cloth covering a cage, revealing a monkey confined within. He raises his gun and fires a shot at it, exclaiming, Behold, the immortal monkey, perched right there. Tia Dalma releases the monkey from its cage. Gibbs disapprovingly remarks, "You have no idea how long it took us to capture it. The remuneration is quite reasonable. We'll open the key pattern. We are in pursuit of this design and the treasures it unlocks. Could the compass you previously acquired from me not assist you in locating this key?" Chapter 49. Perhaps it could. Why? Tia Dalma observed the expression on Jack Sparrow's face, seemingly privy to some knowledge. Jack Sparrow himself appeared uncertain of what he was seeking. Or perhaps he was aware yet reluctant to admit it, was he not? This key has the power to unlock a treasure chest, and the contents within are precisely what you seek, correct? What lies inside? Gibbs inquired. Gold, jewels, or perhaps unclaimed valuables. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. "I sincerely hope it is not something sinister," Tia Dalma remarked. "Are you familiar with Davy Jones?" Yes, he was a mariner, an exceptional sailor. Until he encountered something that tormented any man. What tormented any man? Will asked. "What is this thing?" Tia Dalma's hand brushed against Will's. "The sea. Treasures. A confluence of justice and evil. A woman." Jack Sparrow responded with apparent reluctance. "A woman, one whom he fell in love with." Tia Dalma seemed to take pride in this. "Wait, I have heard that he fell in love with the sea," Gibbs expressed with skepticism. "The same tale, yet different renditions. All bearing truth. He fell deeply in love with that woman, as capricious and cruel as the sea, untamable and ever-changing. He never ceased to love her. Yet such affection brought him immense suffering, though it never threatened his very existence. What did he conceal within the chest? His heart. Are you serious? A heart? How could he possibly have placed his heart within the chest? Is that even feasible?" Paint cast an uncertain glance towards Tayatoma. He deemed the agony of love to be utterly unworthy. Thus he excavated his heart, locked it within the chest, and concealed it away, while keeping the key ever close at hand. "You knew all along, didn't you?" "I was unaware. I did not initially know the whereabouts of the key. Now, all that remains is to retrieve the key from the Flying Dutchman and return to Royalport to rescue your beloved." As Jack Sparrow concluded his statement, he prepared to depart. Tayatoma stopped him, saying, "Let me see your hand." Jack Sparrow rolled his eyes and extended his hand. Tayatoma unraveled the bandage. "Black spots!" several pirates exclaimed. "My eyesight remains as keen as ever. Where have I placed that item? My dear, where art thou?" Amidst this prolonged chaos, Tia Dalma approached with a vial of soil and a necklace. Davy Jones cannot set foot on land. He can only tread upon it once every decade. It is on land that you find safety, Jack Sparrow. Thus, you bring the earth and this necklace. Although that astute woman outside chose not to enter, you must give it to her. It is what she requires. Jack Sparrow gazed at the soil and necklace, questioning, "Are you certain this will be of use? If you desire it not, then return it to me, along with the necklace. Do not covet it, for it is a small gift I bestowed upon that sweet heart." Very well, very well. We must locate the Flying Dutchman," Will stated, foreseeing fate. Tia Dalma discarded something. Jess observed Jack Sparrow, whose demeanor appeared considerably steadier, arching an eyebrow. "Is this resolved?" "Of course. There is nothing Captain Jack Sparrow cannot resolve." Jack Sparrow tossed the necklace to Jess and placed the vial on the ship. Jess caught the necklace, examining it closely. "A sapphire? Does this signify your trust in me?" "It is a gift from the woman within," Jack Sparrow replied as he boarded the vessel. Jess revealed a look of disappointment. "I had thought it might be a gift from you. Today is my birthday." "Ah." Jack Sparrow glanced at Jess, momentarily at a loss for words. "Let us discuss this aboard. Are you certain of what gift you seek?" "You deceive me. It is not my birthday." Jace smirked, a cunning woman. Chapter 50. This was the first time Jack Sparrow encountered her mischievous nature. He wrapped his arms around her waist, their noses almost touching. "I had thought you would appreciate this gift." "What? You?" Jace leaned closer to his lips, only to evade him just as Jack Sparrow sought to advance. "Once is sufficient, dear." Jack Sparrow felt a twinge of irritation. Was it due to the kiss that never transpired? Or was it Jace's retreat that vexed him? Jace donned a necklace and adjusted her collar. Upon returning to the ship, Jace observed the bustling crew and entered the captain's quarters, where Jack Sparrow was fixated on a jar. "Captain, does this jar hold some mystery?" Jace inquired as she took a seat. "Mystery?" Jack Sparrow glanced at Jace. "It is merely a jar of ordinary sand." Jace regarded the jar with skepticism. "A jar of sand? Is a jar of sand truly worthy of the considerable time you dedicate to it?" She could perceive Jack Sparrow's anxiety regarding this jar of sand, as though it were a lifeline. With this thought, Jace's mind sparked with realization. Indeed, it could save your life. Jack Sparrow's greatest fear at present must be the debt collector, Davy Jones. Propping her chin on her hand, she gazed at the jar in feigned confusion. How could this assist you? Davy Jones cannot set foot on land. This jar holds significant value, Jack Sparrow replied, opening his compass. Watching the needle spin incessantly before irritably closing it, Jace observed the captain's actions, sensing a tumultuous mind, likely troubled by the specter of Davy Jones. Perhaps, Jack Sparrow replied. Somewhat distracted, I intend to return you to shore. This revelation took Jace by surprise. Why? The notion of a nobleman's daughter, someone not to be trifled with. Aspiring to become a pirate was indeed astonishing. Jack Sparrow toyed with his compass, his gaze seemingly entranced by its allure. Jace chuckled softly. Jack, it is rather ironic for a noblewoman to find herself reduced to a petty thief on Turtle Island. Jack Sparrow paused momentarily. I possess choices superior to that of a caged bird, Captain. He regarded Jace thoughtfully. Though following an unreliable captain may be perilous, it also affords a degree of freedom. This notion appeared rather reasonable, prompting Jack Sparrow to raise an eyebrow. So, Beckett? Jace nodded. Beckett's ambitions have long left him discontented with the noble class that suppresses him. Am I merely a pawn in his game? Then, a strategic marriage is indeed a self-serving yet astute choice. Beckett could hardly have anticipated that the ultimate benefits would be confined solely to my father, whose intellect far surpassed that of those title holders who idly occupied their positions, and whose ambitions were considerably greater. He was indifferent to my well-being. Marrying into the family merely signified the establishment of familial ties, which also implied several schisms within the internal organization. Jess arranged a few pieces on the board. Originally, she intended to discuss these matters later, but the present moment felt rather dull, and she yearned to stoke the flames, pirate flames. The sapphire shimmered inexplicably, and Jack Sparrow gazed at the necklace, frowning. Was it truly glowing? Indeed, Jess looked down, and it was undeniably radiant. Do you know why Tia Delma gifted me this? She claimed it was a token of our first meeting. Since when did she become so concerned with etiquette? I had thought her adorable little creature would devour me whole upon encountering a stranger. This, too, was a source of my astonishment. Jess, stay in the captain's cabin. We shall soon arrive, he instructed. Chapter 51. Jess looked at Jack Sparrow. Must I remain on deck? The forthcoming events were not so easily resolved. And just to be safe, you must stay in the captain's cabin without making a sound. Otherwise, I may not be able to protect you. Jack Sparrow picked up a nearby oil lamp and appeared to meticulously inspect his gun. Jess understood this was a well-intentioned warning, so she obediently settled into the captain's cabin, for she had no desire to encounter the foul-smelling octopus head. Boom. Jack Sparrow gazed at the distant, decrepit ship that exuded an aura of death. Unable to suppress a shiver, Will turned to inquire, is that the Flying Dutchman? Gibbs, trembling with trepidation, nodded and smiled at Will. It doesn't he look like much? You don't appear to be in great shape either, so don't underestimate her, Jack Sparrow replied, casting a glance at Gibbs. Gibbs continued. It seems to have run aground. What do you plan to do? Jack Sparrow asked Will. I will row over in the small boat and search the entire vessel until I find your key. And if there are crew members aboard, I'll cut down anyone who stands in my way. Will's gaze was resolute, his heart filled with thoughts of his wife Elizabeth and her family, trapped. Perhaps in that moment, he silently vowed that it would soon come to an end. Excellent. I appreciate the straightforwardness. Jack Sparrow admired Will's courage, hoping he would maintain such resolve upon encountering the octopus-headed creature. Moments later, Will ascended into the small boat, lantern in hand. Jack Sparrow kindly cautioned him. If you are captured, just tell them Jack Sparrow sent me to settle his debts. It might save your life. Thank you. Good luck. As he watched Will's receding figure, Jack Sparrow felt a growing calmness within himself. He then commanded Gibbs, extinguish the light. Hearing footsteps, Jess turned to see Captain Jack Sparrow entering the cabin. Did you deceive him? I wonder if he will harbor resentment towards you when he steps aboard. After all, in his heart, you might still be that person with whom he shared a bond of life and death. Oh, your tongue remains as sharp as ever. How can you claim I deceived him? He secured the key for me, and in return, I promised to rescue his beloved. That was our agreement. Unless he failed to retrieve it and remains trapped, that is not my fault. Jack Sparrow playfully wrapped his arm around Jess's waist. Jess pressed her finger against Jack Sparrow's chest. Aren't you concerned that Davy Jones might come after the ship? What exchange did you make with him for your soul? Jack Sparrow awkwardly grasped her finger. You need not concern yourself with such matters. Once this is all over, I shall return you. Why are you so eager to send me away? Jess said, a hint of irritation in her voice. You do not seem to belong to the sea. Yes, yes, it seems only you are meant for the ocean, he replied. I merely wish to stay. I do not desire to return to being a pawn on the noble's chessboard. Since Beckett seeks your compass, he will come looking for you. And my father may very well send someone to keep watch on Beckett. There will undoubtedly be conflict along the way. As Jess spoke, the danger escalated. I could take advantage of the chaos to deal with Beckett, and through his demise, free myself from my father's grasp. Jack Sparrow grimaced in distaste. Do you not wish to confront Beckett? Look at the marks he has left upon you. Jace leaned closer, gazing at Jack Sparrow. What do you think of my recent idea? It's bound to yield profit, Captain. Discussing ideas with pirates? You remain too naive, my dear. Jack Sparrow exited the room, locking the door behind him. Jack Sparrow, you shall regret this. Jace forcefully kicked the door and sulked back into her chair. She noticed a flicker of emotion from Jack Sparrow, leading her to believe that this collaboration was certain to succeed. Had she known better, she would have simply taken a dagger to Beckett, which would have been far more convenient. Chapter 52. The relentless cold rain battered the crew, and the biting wind chilled them to the bone. The overcast sky loomed ominously, as if heralding divine wrath. The torrential downpour enveloped everyone in an overwhelming sense of solitude and despair. Will, holding a lantern, ascended the wreckage of the Flying Dutchman, which appeared even more dilapidated up close. He advanced cautiously, glancing at several corpses clinging to the ropes, and noticed a sailor ahead, tirelessly pulling on the line, repeating, "Set sail, turn about. Set sail, turn about. Sailor, sailor." Will called out a few times. The sailor remained unresponsive, continuing his repetitive motions and phrases. That is futile, sailor. We are stranded. Finally, the sailor reacted, turning his head with a look of terror, his voice laced with despair. No, beneath us. There are dreadful sounds of breathing. Will was perplexed by the meaning of the sailors. He only heard the sound of splashing behind him. Glancing back, he saw something tumble from the mast. Grasping the lantern, he turned and walked backward. In the oppressive darkness, the solitary beam of light barely illuminated the outline of a figure. Will hurriedly approached and pulled the person onto the deck, only to discover that the face was marked with a series of intricate patterns. He stepped back, when suddenly a deafening sound erupted behind him, reminiscent of a colossal entity rising from the depths of the sea. Turning his head, he beheld a ship, a vessel steeped in the essence of death. Gasps erupted from those aboard Will's ship as a horde of grotesque humanoid creatures, adorned with marine life, brandished weapons and charged toward him. Will swiftly evaded, drawing the sword at his side, plunging it into a barrel of oil. Moments later, he struck the oil lamp, flames eagerly entwining around the blade. As time stretched on, Will could only utilize the fire on his sword to warn them to keep their distance. Outnumbered and overwhelmed, he suddenly felt a sharp pain at the back of his head before succumbing to unconsciousness. A suffocating sensation, akin to an invisible hand, tightly gripped Will's throat, rendering him breathless. In an instant, he opened his eyes to the simultaneous assault of rainwater and seawater upon his face, gasping for air. Alongside him, bound to the deck, were the few surviving sailors from the ship. Will could not help but realize that this was indeed the true Flying Dutchman. Surrounded by a contingent of shrimp soldiers and crab generals, it appeared they were awaiting someone. With weapons raised, they encircled a few individuals, yet none uttered a word. The rhythmic thudding echoed as Will turned his gaze toward the source of the sound, revealing a creature with an octopus head, whose crab claws seemed poised to launch an attack. Was this the fabled Flying Dutchman? Was this its captain? Will seemed to comprehend the inexplicable expression on Jack Sparrow's face. Undoubtedly one of fear. Davy Jones leaned closer to a sailor, scrutinizing him before extending a tentacle to ignite a pipe held by another appendage. He inhaled deeply, exhaling smoke directly into the sailor's face. The sailor emitted a whimper, his body trembling uncontrollably. It appeared that Davy Jones had little desire to torment this man further. As he inquired, "Do you fear death? Do you dread that abyss of darkness? Your life unfolds before you. Your sins shall be punished. I can offer you a chance to escape." As the sailor's trembling subsided, he began to raise his head, his eyes widening with burgeoning desire. Chapter 53. Do not listen to his nonsense. In an instant, Davy Jones turned his head. It became evident that this was a sailor of Christian faith, tightly clutching a crucifix necklace, his hands trembling uncontrollably. When Davy Jones averted his gaze, the sailor dared not meet his eyes, instead bowing his head to focus on the cross. David Jones harbored no kindness towards him. The immense crab claw tightened around his neck, compelling the devout follower to tilt his head upward, disdainfully uttering, "Are you not afraid of death? I would rather take this risk. Throw him into the sea." ordered David Jones. Two monstrous figures brandished their swords, swiftly slitting the sailor's throat before casting him into the depths. Will turned away, unwilling to witness the scene any longer. While another sailor clenched his teeth in fury. Cursed be this fate. David Jones regarded him. Life is indeed cruel. He extinguished his pipe against the claw. Is there truly any difference in the afterlife? His tone dripped with venom as he pivoted to address another sailor. I offer you a chance. Join us. Delay your judgment. And you may live for another century. Will you accept? I will, came the hesitant reply. The creatures on deck erupted into shrill laughter. David Jones then turned his gaze upon Will, scrutinizing him before perplexedly inquiring, You are not dead, nor will you die. What brings you here? Recalling Jack Sparrow's words. Will responded, Jack Sparrow sent me to settle his debts. David Jones paused, seemingly taken aback. What did you say? Jack Sparrow sent me to settle his debts. A chuckle escaped David Jones as realization dawned upon him. He comprehended Jack Sparrow's ruse, deceiving a Na'vi soul in an attempt to evade the consequences of their past dealings. Was it? Such a tantalizing proposition indeed. On the distant Black Pearl, Captain Jack Sparrow raised his telescope, observing Davy Jones, who was turning aboard the ship. Under the lens, Davy Jones fixed his gaze upon Jack Sparrow. Immediately, Jack lowered the telescope, only to find Davy Jones had teleported onto the Black Pearl. One by one, crew members were seized by the monstrous entities that boarded the ship. You owe a debt. You have been the captain of the Black Pearl for 13 years. As we agreed, Davy Jones advanced menacingly, forcing Jack to retreat step by step. Through the crack of the captain's cabin door, Gibbs witnessed the scene. Holding his breath in anxiety. To be precise, I served only 2 years before being overthrown, Jack Sparrow retorted. You are a pitiable captain, yet still a captain. Have you not introduced yourself as Captain Jack Sparrow all these years? Davy Jones mocked. The monsters erupted in derisive laughter. Jack Sparrow wrinkled his nose. I have already compensated you. I send a man to serve as your sailor. Two souls cannot be conflated. He hastily shifted the topic. We have reached a consensus. Let us discuss the price. Davy Jones stared incredulously at this deceitful gesture, unable to fathom the absurdity of Jack's words. Price? Jack Sparrow inched closer to Davy Jones, his expression cunning, as he whispered, How many souls must I offer in exchange for my own? Davy Jones cast a glance at the crew and then at Jack Sparrow, seemingly settling on a price. 100 souls for a span of 3 days. You truly are a gem, my friend. Deliver that lad back to us, and we shall proceed post-haste. Jack Sparrow turned, poised to welcome Will back, when suddenly a shark's head appeared before him. Chapter 54 I shall use that child as collateral. Procure for me 99 others, and all shall be well, Davy Jones declared. Have you not seen Will Turner? He is honest, valiant, and rather effeminate, at least worth 4 souls. Perhaps 3.5? Jack Sparrow began to haggle, but his next words became rather nonsensical. Did I mention he is in the throes of romance? Observing the bewildered expression on Davy Jones's face, Jack Sparrow felt a surge of pride. To be torn asunder from one's beloved, on the cusp of matrimony, surely would be more cruel than allowing them to wed? Yet, in the next moment, Davy Jones regained his composure. I intend to keep him. You must provide me with 99 more. Tell me, Sparrow, can your conscience find peace? Can you condemn an innocent, a friend, to a life of eternal servitude while you bask in your own freedom? Listening to Davy Jones's words, Jack Sparrow pondered for a moment before responding with a grin. Indeed. I have no qualms. Shall we seal our pact with blood? Or perhaps ink? Davy Jones offered no further words, his tentacles entwining around Jack Sparrow's hand, the slime sliding continuously over his skin. 3 days, he reiterated. When Davy Jones turned away, that group of monsters followed the captain's footsteps, departing from the Black Pearl. Jack Sparrow gazed down at the slime on his hand. The dark mark gradually faded under his scrutiny. Gibbs. Yes. A sudden feeling of peculiarity washed over him. This statement seemed inexplicable, yet Gibbs immediately grasped Jack Sparrow's intent and inquired, How do you plan to gather 99 souls in 3 days? Fortunately, he refrained from specifying the nature of the individuals desired. Jack Sparrow had already conceived a plan to acquire such numbers. The Island of Turtles. He wiped the slime from his hand onto Gibbs' clothing, reiterating, the Island of Turtles. Jess did not catch the entirety of their conversation. But considering the maritime rumors surrounding the Flying Dutchman and the Dark Mark, one could hardly avoid conjuring images of mythical demons. Known for their penchant for making deals with mortals, Jack Sparrow's mind was akin to that of a demon. Jess observed Jack Sparrow entering the captain's quarters and, In a fleeting glance, notice the absence of the dark mark on his palm. Jess's pupils dilated as he seized Jack Sparrow's hand for a closer inspection. Jack Sparrow extricated his hand from Jess's grasp, flipping it in the air with a hint of pride, affirming, "It truly is gone, is it not?" "You've made a deal with him again," Jess remarked, his tone laced with caution. Jack Sparrow's gesture came to a brief halt. "Should I commend your cleverness, Jess? Greedy individuals invariably pay a price. However, those shrewdly greedy, like myself, are perpetually devising ways to evade that cost." Jess could not dismiss Jack Sparrow's musings. Yet it was crucial to recognize that the accounts of Davy Jones are not easily settled. "I hope you do not flee when Davy Jones comes calling," Jess remarked. Jess's return to the ship was primarily motivated by a desire for Davy Jones's heart. Tia Dalma had mentioned that Davy Jones, having fallen deeply in love with a woman, and subsequently suffering from that love, had extracted his own heart and locked it away in a treasure chest. Initially, Jess believed that Will could retrieve the key with ease, only to discover that both man and treasure were lost. Jack Sparrow, too, was ensnared in a web of debt. Yet now, by following Jack Sparrow, there remained a possibility of boarding the Flying Dutchman to steal the key and locate Davy Jones's heart.